And a happy Thursday morning to you. Welcome to the EST Hangout on a lovely Thursday. Nothing happening the last show. I wasn't angry at all. It didn't happen at all. This is the Hangout presented by Mott's Clamato, Caesar, Matt Iwanyk, Tom Gazzola with us here for an hour. Yeah. And then Dean Millard for Vengeance Media with us as well today. Gager usually is on Thursdays, but he had a bail. He had a meeting. He'll be on with two guys and a goalie later today. YouTube Trev will stop by at some point today as well. Dino, how are you today?
I'm great. I'm good. Last time I was here, you guys told me these mics had changed. So do I have this?
You're in the right spot. Yeah,
we found out how to use them.
That's right.
We read the instructions.
Instructions sometimes help.
We figured out the right spot to speak into the microphone, which is kind of important to sound
key,
proper.
Right? Kind of key,
yeah. That was it wasn't a good start for that one.
Whoopsies.
Yeah.
We all make mistakes, apparently. Except for my wife. She's apparently never made a mistake.
No, she's perfect.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah.
I'd believe that.
Yeah.
I want to go into the past morning show. Do you remember Eric Thomas?
Yeah.
Do you remember having him on when the night show? How great he was.
He was basically one question radio. You asked him one question and he would fill. But the thing I remember the most is we all love our buddy Hernan Salas.
Yeah.
But for Eric, it was Hernan. He had the emphasis on the wrong syllable. So it was like Hernan Salas, Hernan instead of Hernan. And so I always found that kind. But I thought Eric is very, very knowledgeable and filled a lot of time.
It's just, he always filled time and just has that old-timey radio to him.
Yeah, totally.
And we had him on with you boys this morning today. And it was the first time we had him with EST with you guys. And it was... I just remembered him. I remember Hernan would come in or Connor would come in and they'd have their sheet of questions to ask him.
Get like two.
And then that would be like 15 minutes.
Yeah.
It was just great.
But you know what? I saw just on that topic, I cannot wait to watch everything in Vegas with this race just because it's so different. I mean, the viewership is going to be awful because some of the qualifying is at 1 a.m. Eastern and things like that. But
qualifying is 1 Edmonton time. The quality.
Yes.
1 o'clock.
Edmonton.
I thought it was
really
1 Eastern.
No, that's the race.
It's like,
if I like,
it's
at least
really
that's what I have.
For half of the country, right?
Oh,
and
100%.
So obviously, but the spectacle of it is going to be great, and they're just getting in for year one. Like F1 is not going to go in and do all this. There's been a lot of complaints. Construction workers have working 90 hours. The locals, the tourists have been disrupted.
Yeah.
But this is going to be something that maybe people aren't going to watch it live, but people are going to watch this at some point or tune in, and it's going to be, a point. There's not a lot of appointment highlight watching anymore. Like people get their highlights instantly. People are going to be looking at this because I just can't. It's Vegas. It's the Strip. It's nighttime. It's not going to be the most exciting race as far as the drivers.
Track layout too.
Yeah. And that might change over time, but this first race is going to be something else. I will watch it for sure.
Are you an F1 fan?
Not a huge one at all, no. Okay. And I will watch, I don't mind it. I will watch it, but I will make a point of either recording this and watching it or watching it live.
I'm very excited for this race, and I'm like you. I'll watch F1 on I got into it via Drive to Survive, and I bought into it, especially during the pandemic too. I still watch casually on Sundays. But you're
not getting up at whatever.
No, if I'm
1 in the morning,
if I'm up at 7 or 8, I'll flip the race on. I'll be like, okay, what's going on? But like this year with Verstappen basically winning every race, it's kind of been boring to a certain extent, and I have no qualm saying that. But like you said, this is destination viewing. The disruption it has caused in Las Vegas is unbelievable. I think the culinary workers went on strike last week, and the timing of it was impeccable.
Well, if
and
you're a labor guy, that's
a
smart way of doing it.
They had this circled on the calendar for when they would go on strike. They cut down the trees in front of the Bellagio fountains, which were on the golf course at the Dunes, which is rich in history in Las Vegas. So there's all these things that the city and the Strip have sacrificed for F1. It's a 3-year contract.
Ticket sales are low.
The prices are dropping down. Like there was $1 million packages when the race was announced. They built this huge paddock area. Apparently, paddock, the term in the Vegas and Nevada area, is a term that they don't really like, has negative connotations. So they're changing the name. I couldn't find the reasoning why.
That's interesting.
I'd have to look into it more. But that element has been a big problem as well. So
But this is
creating havoc in Vegas, and they want to make it a 10-year thing.
Yeah, and
I don't think it will.
Oh, see, I totally disagree. I think that they're just putting it. It's like the Sphere. That Sphere lost $100 million.
It's like it went like $1 billion over budget.
Right, but they know long term this is going to, like the concert. U2 had their
well, they have a bit of a residency there.
residency there.
Residency.
So it's Vegas. You're looking at putting in roots, right? Just like Bugsy Siegel did. How many years ago, recognizing why don't we put an oasis in the desert?
Yeah, and
now the
holes
A's
in
are
the
going
sand.
there. The A's are going there. So now you have 3 out of 4. The NBA was there before anybody with their G League tournament or whatever.
Yeah. They had the All-Star game there a number of years
different
ago.
things. They're off-season events. So they will get there at some point. I mean,
MLS wants to go there.
this is just, I think this is the first year it's going to be confusion and they'll get it right. And I don't think it'll leave Vegas. I could be wrong, but things that happen in Vegas that lose money happens all the time. People are losing money and building and investing and losing into the first year. Now that Vegas has become not just a destination for entertainment and gambling, but sports.
Yeah.
I think everybody else is going to be like, how do we not get in there? And F1 is in there now, and they will make improvements. There's no way you can do this every year.
Yeah.
They'll figure it out. I honestly think that the F1 is looking at this saying, okay, we lost some money here, but this is going to build, and in 3 years or 2 years or whatever it is, it's going to catch. That's my feeling, because it's Vegas, and things seem to work, and the sporting world is going there.
Yeah.
Why not this?
It's interesting because F1, I think, took on the promotion themselves, and they pumped $500 million US into it.
Well, they're owned by the Braves, right? Like the company that owns the Braves owns F1, and
Do they?
that's what I was.
Was it called Liberty something?
Yeah, Liberty
Yeah, I know it's
Media,
an American company.
So
I didn't know
it's-
they own the Braves.
Yeah, they own the Atlanta Braves, and so it's interesting that the NHL, the NFL, every league in North America, what are they trying to do right now? Trying to grab a piece of Europe. F1 is trying to grab a piece of North
It's
America
opposite.
because what does North America do, or United States in particular? They monetize sports better than anybody
Absolutely.
out there, better than anybody. Like soccer, football is the most popular sport in the world, but it's not monetized better than the NFL.
No.
Like the NFL and North American sports monetize things really well. Not everybody watches football in the world. More people watch soccer, but the NFL makes more money than anybody. And now F1 is saying, hey, we got to get into the North American market. Well, all these sports it's like they should just trade fan bases or something,
Right.
because they're trying to do what each other is trying to do in their respective markets.
Yeah, like F1, like it's funny when I hear that Drive to Survive raised the popularity of F1. I was like, well, no, it
In
raised
North
it in North
America.
America.
Yeah.
The world already liked F1.
Right,
sure.
It didn't change that. F1 came on the map in North America.
But
and that's why then, since then, though,
Yeah.
they had a Miami race, they had a Las
Exactly.
Vegas race, because they're trying to really take that U.S.
They
money.
need
And
to.
it's
It's the only place they don't have.
well, and they will sacrifice other races, I think, first around the world to make sure that the 3 U.S. races last, including the Las Vegas one.
and they'll
That's
put
good
in a
point.
lot of money because they know listen, when people think of the US from Europe, they're thinking, Miami, just you mentioned, Vegas, they're destination places, right?
Yeah,
That's
New
where
York
they want to
City.
go so they can get European fans. You get European fans to come over and fill it up, and so it is. So
And Coda in Austin is a huge event. It's popular. That one's never going to go. That's the U.S. race just for the Grand Prix.
Yeah.
But for the spectacle, it's
places,
Miami
yeah.
and Vegas. Those are the spectacles. And the Sphere is part of the F1 race this weekend.
I know.
I think
It's
they're supposed to have
so
like
cool.
driver stats on there and things like that
wild.
as it's
So
going. So they're going to have
that's your
that as part of it.
scoreboard.
that is,
Yeah,
that is
amazing.
your giant. Like I
That's
I
amazing.
can't imagine what a concert would be inside there. Like, you got a concert. Like, listen, I've seen Roger Waters a couple of times, and his light show and everything is great. The entire ceiling there is a light.
Yeah.
Everywhere you look is a light show. So imagine being out on the strip watching this race, and you're watching it. Where's the scoreboard? Oh yeah, this giant ball in front of me. Like
Right.
it's just. I can't imagine what flying in would be like as the F1. Like it's just the whole thing about it. The aerial views, everything that they're going to have. I think it's going to be like nothing we have seen before. And I really got into racing when we had it here
Yeah.
and getting to know some of the drivers. And, my wife was part of Aquila who was producing
Right.
it. So right
I
down.
pulled cable for them one year. I was in the pits one year for
That's
that.
where she's like, I need to hire Matthew Iwanyk. And then he got away to radio.
Actually, as we were cleaning up the stuff afterwards, me and 2 other guys in a golf cart, we drove the track.
Yeah,
so I was
that's
able to,
awesome.
once
That's
I drove
awesome.
the Edmonton Indy track at one point.
But when you get down and see it in person and see the
amazing.
speed and the sound and meeting Paul Newman for a second was obviously kind of neat. But that's where it's like, oh, wow, this is much more interesting than, can't turn right NASCAR, right?
Yeah, totally.
Like for a long time, NASCAR was left turn, left turn, left turn. Now it's a little bit different. But this was, wow, there is so much more to racing than I ever imagined.
The culture around it, that was one thing covering Champ Car, and then IndyCar was like, you see like there's celebrities around, and you see
people are fascinated by
I
them.
remember Frankie Muniz. I don't know if he was in the Indy Lights or whatever the lower
right.
series was,
He
but
drove.
he was
He
racing.
drove.
Yeah.
I'm like, there's Malcolm in the middle, and
That's
you're like,
right.
he's such a little dude, and he's just walking around there. Hey, how's it going? Hey,
Oh my
how's-"
God. Speaking of that,
racing
whoever
culture.
thought Bryan Cranston would be the star he is now from
Amazing.
that show.
Yeah.
I was always thinking Malcolm was going to be the big star, but
Right.
the mom and the dad from that show both went on. The mom
did
was
she
in
do?
the mom was in I Harding, I Tonya.
Oh,
really? I never saw that one.
Was
Actually.
that
And
Jane Krasinski?
No, not Jane. I don't. Anyway, she went
something.
on to some really great stuff
Yeah.
too. She's been in something else too, and Cranston obviously.
Well, Cranston he set the tone with
Jane something.
Jane Kasmeric.
Yeah,
we go.
She was the mom in I, Tonya. Fantastic as a nasty person.
And Cranston really laid down his base as Tim Watley on Seinfeld.
Yeah,
right?
that's right.
Yeah.
But to go from that comedic way to what he turned into,
Breaking Bad.
and it's just,
Yeah.
and then
And
he has
then-
the Your Honor.
Yeah. Oh my goodness, man! Like this
Right,
guy is just like
Brilliant.
nailing everything.
Yeah, but Hal was the best.
Hal was great.
Like that was a fantastic show.
But you're back to your point. It was a like it wasn't just a media and fans. It was celebrities either wanting to watch it or be involved in it because.
Well, how many
so
celebs
drive-
are going to be at this though?
Well,
like
oh my
that's going to be
goodness.
like I would think
Like
there's
this
a
is
lot.
like going to be like
but
a UFC
are
fight
the
where they're bringing them
celebs
in,
okay
right?
for the
Yeah.
10 o'clock start?
Oh, for
Like
sure.
that's
course.
gonna be- I'm assuming
Man,
so.
yeah. And
But
Didn't you ever watch Entourage when they go? They're flying into Vegas at like 1 a.m.
and
man.
there's a snap decision at 11:30.
Yeah,
Get the
Johnny
PJ
Drama's
ready.
getting a
Yeah.
massage. You know,
Yeah,
like
let's go to Vegas then. Sure,
it's a great episode.
Now, okay,
Yes.
I had
brings
a.
his own suits.
I love that. Show.
Before you continue, I just want to quickly free practice starts 9:30 tonight, I guess. Free practice 2 is 1 a.m. Free practice 3 tomorrow night at 9:30. Quali
like for the
then
drivers? It's
then
crazy.
quali's at 1 a.m. on the Saturday, and then Saturday night at 11 p.m. is the actual race.
So how do you
it's-
switch your clock as a driver like
I
that?
don't know, man.
Like how do you instantly go
Especially they've been, I think, in North America for a little bit. So it's not even like they're coming from Europe, and it's
where
like you,
you
stay
might
on
be
that
able to?
clock
Yeah,
and you just live
like
that
I
way.
wonder what. See that there's so many fascinating
Melatonin's
things
going
from
to be huge for some of those drivers.
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
Caffeine.
What if you're? Because I know we talk about IndyCar, Champ Car when it was here. Like those trailers had like sleeping quarters.
Sure, some of them, yeah.
And F1 is so
They're
IndyCar
unbelievable.
is a motorsports for millionaires, and then the saying was F1 is a motorsports for billionaires.
Right.
So I would imagine that if they really are that disciplined to stay on that clock, because that is a European clock, that's why the race is so late. Maybe they keep them there and keep them away from the strip and out of the hotels and the casinos. It's probably pretty tough to do.
But like they had that Netflix series or a live event, golfers and F1 drivers
Yeah.
were playing, and that's during the day. Like that would
I
happen
know.
if you're on the if you're trying to find your
What were
the
they doing? I
clock.
never saw that. What was
Netflix
that?
did their first ever live sport this week, where they did a golf tournament at the course that's right there. Is that
right by the Win.
yeah?
Oh,
I can't
sorry, in
remember.
Vegas.
Yeah,
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 sorry,
it's a
sorry,
great
yeah.
course.
I
And it
thought
was
you
a
meant there
couple
was
of-
like
No.
drivers and golfers.
Well, there's a couple F1 drivers golfing with
Oh no
PJ.
way!
It was like a drive
Carlos
to
Sainz.
survive.
Like a pro-am?
Drive to survive slash what's
Full
the golf
swing.
full swing come
Yeah.
together. 'cause
No
they're doing
way.
Netflix
Yeah.
show. So they did that.
Wow, I'll have to check that out.
And but that would have happened during when I would assume you have to be sleeping to get on your
Maybe
cycle
right,
here.
yeah. You're
not
But
playing
they're
golf at
golfing.
night, were they?
They're golfing, and it was during the day.
Yeah.
I mean,
Right,
it's just like
At night they were golfing.
no, it was during the day type
during
thing.
the
I
day.
think.
You can golf at night there. They have
Yes.
lights in there.
Well, it's the most
On
expensive
courses
golf
or just
course.
Top Shot?
on that course.
On
I
that car,
believe
it's like
they
the
have.
most expensive golf course.
Yeah.
I think
there
that's
is.
probably where they held the
It's-
battles. Remember Tiger Woods and
Yes,
those guys did
one
of
in
them was
Vegas
there, yeah.
at nights. Yeah.
The other thing I was gonna say too about this race, it was the millionaires versus billionaires thing. I was talking to Vinny Desharnais. He went to F1 in Montreal.
Right.
And I was like, what was that like? And he's like, man, the people watching was incredible to see. He's like, the types of cars that all of a sudden are driving around the city. You're wondering, oh, who's that guy? Oh, he looks like he's some guy from Monaco. Who's that guy? Well, he's a guy from Spain that's a billionaire. And
it's so just, have no idea who he is, but he has more money than anybody.
And
right?
so these people are going to be flying in their private jets, and they're going to be at this race in Vegas, and it's going to be ridiculous. The amount of flash and panache going around this race. I hope it sticks around, but like
I like that it's also a nice night race too.
Yeah, so
like
do
that
I.
they're making it the night spectacle with everything.
Because that's Vegas. That's what you think of.
Absolutely.
Is the bright lights and the glitz.
You're
right?
asleep during
you
the
have
daylight.
to do it.
But the locals loathe everything about this race.
Sure.
Loathe it.
Well, but they don't load the money it's going to bring into the economy. I mean, this is the thing. Like, I don't live in Vegas. I know people that do, obviously, but you can't complain about the action and everything and then not want to be in Vegas. That's the tourist attraction. It comes with living in Vegas.
Yeah. Okay.
It's like, I'm just saying.
I understand.
I get it. Like construction is we all hate. Listen, we all hate construction.
Edmonton knows very well about construction.
They're still doing it right now.
I know. Like, and listen, if I could go out there and see that the construction, the reason they were doing it is because like hundreds of millions of dollars was coming into my economy. Okay, I could get used to it, but I can only imagine how bad it has been. And from talking to people, like. It's been ridiculous.
Awful. One of the things they did on like one of the pedways that like overlooks the sphere also overlooks the race track. And they tried putting up a privacy film over the last few weeks because they don't want people to watch the race for free.
They don't
type
want
thing.
free viewers.
But what happens is they put this and over the last few weeks, people are ripping it down because tourists are coming like, I want to look at the sphere. I want to take a picture of the sphere. So it's been getting torn down all over the place.
Do that.
So
like that.
They've done
that. But that's F1.
Yeah.
That they don't want you to watch their stuff for free.
Wow, there is,
and that's going to be interesting to see how that.
There is an
plays
interest of hubris in this and ego to watch that F1 just And listen, we have seen organizations get too big to fail that are like we've seen organizations that thought, oh, we can never fail. Hockey Canada, what they're going through right now is a prime example. Some people can get too big to fail. And F1 does have to be a little bit careful. And when you're doing stuff that is taking away from what somebody flew to Vegas to do, and that's maybe take a picture of the spear from that spot, whatever. You can't do that. But that's where you're getting, we can do anything we want.
They could have put the film up the day of the race.
You sure you could.
Or you just leave it there. And if people are there for free, people are there for free. The San Francisco Giants have a couple spots in their outfield that are just open. Like if you get there in time, you could get right up against the outfield wall and you can watch the game for free. They don't charge you for that spot. Some places do that, and it's just like let people stand there and look.
This is a pedway between hotels.
There's one of the pedways or something
over the strip and all that. Yeah.
So
and it overlooks part of the race.
If you want it, then buy it and make it a seating. Make it like a private seating where you set up a bar or something and close it off. Like just don't be kicking people out because they're taking pictures.
I think technically it's a crosswalk, so maybe
you
can't.
can't.
Yeah.
Then they shouldn't be
took
doing
over the streets already.
But they shouldn't be doing anything to it. Like because if they took over the street, you have to let people. Then that's going a little bit too far, and that's where I think sometimes you're like, oh my goodness.
This is the thing I think F1 will be interesting to watch with that moving forward is that Liberty has bought them and they're trying to Americanize.
That's what I mean.
But that's I think also going to turn a lot of F1 enthusiasts. Like people who've been longtime followers of F1s, I don't think are fully in love with how Liberty is going about this, trying to grow this. They're adding more races. There's a lot of things and we might lose a couple of tracks that F1 fans really enjoy.
Sure. Weren't they talking about Monaco being in jeopardy?
Monaco being in jeopardy, Spa being gone and stuff.
Wow.
And it's like the F1 people are like, they're not the most exciting races always. But
they
have the legacy, and the F1 diehard is sitting there going, "Why are you getting rid of this? So we can have another race in America."
So
that's the balancing act that Liberty's having, where they're trying to make as much money as they can and grow that U.S. audience. But the enthusiasts are going, "You might be hurting the heart and soul of."
And
what
I don't think
this
they
is.
care. Not that
they're
don't
Americans.
care.
They don't care what anyone else thinks.
I think they're less worried about losing tradition and more concerned about bringing in American fans, which brings in more money, which sells more merchandise, yada yada yada. And so you get to the point where it's like, we can sacrifice fans and tradition and that and do this. Well, you might regret that at some point when somebody else takes over or buys and says, how did we lose all this or whatever? But that's their focus right now, is grow this sport in the United States, where they pay more money for sporting events and on sports than anywhere in the world.
Yeah.
So that's easily and I think they are looking at it saying, yeah, we're gonna sacrifice some of this on the left to bring in more money on the right, and it is a very American vision.
I have something Vegas related, sports related that Dino touched on. Do we have to hit a line or anything like that first?
No.
Okay, let's go to it then. Okay.
Well, Tom Gazzola, D. Millard, Matt Iwanyk
Thank
here
you.
on the EST
Good
Hangout. We could do
reset.
that. We could do the reset for the audio.
Thank you.
folk.
I knew something. We had to do something.
There's always
technical.
something we
Yeah,
can
for
do.
the listeners. For the listeners. Okay, so like the F1 thing, this is going to be really cool to see. Does it last? Does it make it the 10 years like they expect it to? It is a thing for 3 years. The sacrifice, like Dino was alluding to in regard to Las Vegas and the Strip and all of that. The other thing, and you said it, Dean, with the A's going to Vegas, there's potentially a LeBron James-led ownership group for an NBA team eventually. There's talk that they wouldn't play at T-Mobile Arena, that they might build a new
Because that's what Vegas is. Just
basketball
multiple
arena,
arenas.
And it's north.
Didn't
on
we
the
just
north
get
end of the
away
strip.
from this in sports? Like the ACC was built for the Raptors only, and we talked about this, I think maybe the last time. The Leafs went in there.
Yep.
And they didn't
Changed
have a
the config.
gondola.
Yeah.
Because the NBA did everything from the ground. So why are people building separate stadiums again?
Well, that is the plan. If you don't know Vegas, I know most people do. T-Mobile Arena is on the south end of the strip on the west side. There's a plot of land where this new arena would be. I think it's called AllNet, and it's on the northeast side towards the stratosphere, but on the east side of the strip. And that, I think, is the potential plan for this other arena for the Vegas
NBA
NBA
MGM have an
team.
arena? Two?
MGM has, like Mandalay Bay
Where's
has
the
an
UFC
arena.
fights?
I think
usually?
sometimes they're at
MGM,
Mandalay
right?
Bay. Sometimes
Okay.
they're at T-Mobile.
So how many massive arenas does this place have?
MGM's involved with T-Mobile.
Okay.
MGM's part owner of, or
Right.
is,
I
has
thought
a
there's
hand in the
another one that
Golden
like
Knights.
boxing fights go to. That isn't just T-Mobile. There's a different big
there
ring.
is MGM, like MGM Grand also has like an arena. There's a bunch of them. The Orleans has
But I
one.
bet you there's not many 20,000 seat arenas. They're
Right.
all like the
These are like
T-Mobile,
12 to 15.
So the NBA needs a 20,000.
Yeah,
If they're
exactly.
going to do it.
And then that would be its own moneymaker.
I guess they would probably use it a lot more than in season. They would use it in their off season for their tournaments and stuff. So maybe they want their own sort of and listen,
could be.
if you have a LeBron led ownership group, you're
And
going to
there'd
be
be
able
like
to
a
afford
hotel component, shopping mall. Yeah.
I'll let you continue.
Okay.
I just would quickly. MGM Grand Garden Arena.
Yes.
Is 15,000 permanent, but with bleachers it could go to 17,000.
Yeah.
There's the Michelob Ultra Arena. That's 12,000.
it. Yeah, some smaller ones.
I'm just
have
trying
those.
to. There's a bunch of actual just rinks in the area.
Yeah. Orleans has one. That's where the ECHL team played, I believe.
It's the
okay,
Dollar
and-
Loan Center.
Dollar Loan's the new one where the Henderson
that's-
Silver
yeah.
Knights play. The other thing I was going to say, so in all of this, we've got the A's moving.
Right.
And that went through unanimously today, as we had on the Nielsen show. They're going to tear down the Tropicana
To build the A
to
stadium.
build the A stadium on the Strip. And there's pushback from the locals on the A's going there.
Yeah.
They're reluctant to have them come there. Mark Davis, who owns the Raiders and brought the Raiders from Oakland, built a $2 billion stadium not far from T-Mobile Arena, just off the Strip, Mandalay Bay, that area. He doesn't really want to deal with the A's. He's not really well.
He doesn't get a say in this.
No,
one.
I know, but like-
you did the same thing that the A's are doing.
Yeah,
Go
that's,
away,
that's
Mark
true. But
Davis.
like, but it's not just Mark Davis.
No,
I'm
I know.
just saying
I know what
there's-
you're saying with the locals, but I'm just
Yeah.
going with the Mark Davis. Of course, no, you did the exact same thing that the A's
No,
are
but
trying
he
to do
didn't
here.
tank
So.
their payroll.
Yeah.
No, I know,
and
but
he-
he left Oakland to go to Las Vegas, and he built a stadium
Right.
there.
His dad did
the
it 5
Athletics are going
times
to
or
do the
whatever.
same
But
thing.
it's
So
a different-
You
it
can't
is
block
different.
that.
But I'm just
No.
saying, like, the momentum against
Yeah.
the Oakland A's going to Vegas. They have their AAA team, the Aviators, playing out of a new ballpark in Summerlin. There's all these things where, you read stories, you watch news stories from Vegas about this move of the A's over to to Nevada and to Vegas, and they're just kind of like, we don't really need a baseball team right now.
Even Major League Baseball said, I think the quote was, "Money is iffy."
Yeah.
But it's still a better solution than what's going on in Oakland. That's according to Major League Baseball.
Yeah.
Where the mayor of Oakland has said money can be found to get this done. They just do not want to be in Oakland anymore. They're basically, the only thing that's different about this Oakland A's team and the movie Major League is there's not a picture of the owner in the locker room and they peel it off with every loss and the Oakland A's didn't win it all and go to it. This is Major League.
Yeah.
I'm surprised their plane didn't tank and their bath was crapped out and whatever. They've done everything they can to do this. And J-Mo is a huge Oakland A's fan. This must be crushing him. This is a storied franchise, some of the best uniforms in Major League Baseball.
Absolutely.
And they're gone. And listen, whether it's the right owner or not, or Bryce Harper has said, I'm from Vegas, I'm not sure this is going to work. It's hard to play baseball in 110-degree heat. So they're going to have an indoor stadium, obviously, kind of like what Crush is talking about in Arizona, how they have and how hard it is. I don't know. I think it's a foregone conclusion that a baseball team gets there, but I don't know why Major League Baseball didn't do an expansion team. Like this is, and fix Oakland. Like, why are you leaving the Bay Area? You have so much history. And now you're letting a team walk in on relocation instead of getting the expansion money that you could have had. It's silly.
Because they'll still do that.
They will still do
and they'll
that,
still,
I guess,
and the NHL's opened up the door for all the other leagues to get into the expansion game. They're just waiting. But this is where the NHL actually did it right with Vegas, is they got there first.
Yeah. They wanted to get there first.
I can't believe they did it. Honestly, I cannot believe that the NHL got there first.
And that's a great get for them.
Because if you are now, let's say baseball's going there, NFL was there, and now you're trying to go in as a hockey team, you get lost a little bit.
Yeah.
But to be the first one there, and also to be the expansion team, where it's, in the end, you're going to be the local team. Like, the Raiders aren't Vegas. They came to Vegas.
That's right.
The
You're
Athletics
exactly
aren't
right.
Vegas. They're coming to
You're
Vegas.
exactly right.
The Knights are Vegas.
Yeah.
They're homegrown. It's their team.
You're right.
And that
makes such a difference.
And the fact that they got good early, the fact that they won the Stanley Cup early, there should be a long-standing franchise now in Vegas for a long time because it's been built properly, but it's also always going to be theirs.
Yeah, Vegas is the one place where relocation does work because so many people are tourists, right?
Transient,
Either they're transient, they're not from there. There's either they moved there or they're going there to watch their team or whatever.
Yeah.
But you're right. It is our team. It's not LA's team. It's not Oakland's team or whatever it might be. It is ours. It is.
There's like 1 million people that live in Vegas or something. That live in Vegas.
2.7. It's one of the fastest growing cities in the U.S.
Like they never had their own team, and now in the end, the Golden Knights will always be their team.
They call it Vegas born.
That's right.
That's the motto.
And you couldn't. You're right, Matthew. You could not go the opposite way. If the NBA, let's say, the NBA did expansion instead of the Golden Knights. If the NHL was trying to come in now, they would get so lost in the shuffle.
Totally.
The NBA will come in and will not get lost in the shuffle.
Nope.
The A's maybe, but the NHL has a foothold now that even the Raiders are going to be the top dog there as far as sports teams, but there's even going to be people that are Golden Knights fans for life.
Yep.
And their kids and their grandchildren and everything. It is going to, and their kids might move away, and they're still going to be Vegas Golden Knights fans.
This is why, like in Seattle, though, the NHL needed to get the Kraken there before the Supersonics come
point.
back.
Sure.
Because the Seattle market is
how
packed.
is the NHL beating the NBA to all these markets?
But that, you
good
could
point.
come in
I don't
after
know.
the Supersonics. There's no because it's not even the NBA coming to Seattle. It's a historic
How are they
franchise.
sleeping on these markets and letting the NHL? Because this is the only way the NHL gets a foothold in these markets. And listen, they don't have a foothold in Seattle yet, but they're
but you're
building
there
one. Yeah,
because Seattle already has a history there. The thing about the NBA, and I do want to get there because Adam Silver made a couple comments this week about expansion, but they are waiting for their TV deal to be up.
That's
almost,
right,
so that they can expand and
they're not having a lot
TV
of luck with the TV deal. From what I've heard, is there's a lot of pushback at the ask that they want. And let's look at the TV landscape right now. It's not good. So changing. Where is it? one of the networks just
Bally's.
went under. Was
Yeah.
it Bally?
Those
Yeah.
are the regional deals.
Right. But I'm just talking about that's the regional, but the national deals. Now you have streamers that want to get in there. What are the local networks? Do they still want to pay?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a shifting landscape, not only at the local level in the United States, but can you see a league going to a Apple full time?
Yes.
I can see it happening
Well, MLS
soon.
is there.
Right.
The Suns are a free TV. They're on regular TV this year.
Yeah. The MLS
went
thing is
to
really
normal
interesting
television.
because to do that with Messi is a big draw, right? To do that without Messi, could that have happened? Well, I guess that's the reason they did it. Apple gave him a bunch of money, right? So
And he gets a portion of that.
That's right.
But
Yeah.
the problem that they'll have, and then sorry to interrupt because I know you want to say
I've
something,
got-
but
yeah.
it's MLS. The problem is, okay, let's say I'm a Vancouver Whitecaps fan now, or like I went to a Whitecaps game this season and I'm in Vancouver and I want to watch more Whitecaps. I got to buy Apple TV.
Yeah.
I think that's gonna be the. Can you convert people to
But I
want to
think
then
it's
go
all- you get
pay for
everything,
Apple?
though.
You do,
Yeah.
but do I want to pay for Apple TV to watch the Whitecaps because I just went to one game,
Yeah.
or do I want to watch them a little bit more? And like, look, TSN got to play some games this year. I think one a week or something. The majority of them were TFC, of course, even though they were like historically bad this year.
Yeah.
Don't get me started on the Toronto soccer market again here.
Oh, baby.
But I'm intrigued to see how the Apple full deal plays out.
I was gonna say this. Dino brought up the Bally network when the Stars were here. What 2 weeks ago now? I was talking with some of their staff, and I'm like, "What's going on with you guys' TV contract?" And I was told literally it is game to game. They don't know when the plug will be pulled on Bally's, and they're gonna have to go to Plan B like that,
Which isn't good for the cap.
And it could
if that
happen.
happens.
Yeah, it could happen in the middle of a back-to-back scenario. One night they're on Bally's, and then there's an announcement that night Bally's done. Dallas Stars, where are you going to watch them the next night? With the
that's
same
what
broad-
I mean. Like,
They're
what is
game
Plan
to
B
game.
though? Like,
I don't know. And there's now there is talks. Some teams in the league, I know the Oilers have thrown this idea around bringing their broadcast in-house, but as soon as they find out the costs associated, renting the trucks, putting the broadcast out there, getting the money to
stream,
all of that,
everything.
they're like, damn, this thing is expensive.
it's why people don't do it. It's why,
Yeah.
like it's amazing. You have an idea, and then you get into it, and then you see the cost, and you're like, oh, this is why it's not done a lot because
Right.
of the.
It's not just Jack and Louie on the broadcast, and there you go, we're good to go.
No, it
there's
takes
a
like 50
lot of
people.
things behind the scenes
Yeah.
to get that going, and it's not a radio
thousands
broadcast.
of dollars just to start that truck, just to turn the keys on
Yeah.
in that truck is thousands and
It's like
thousands.
a $40 million truck too.
So it's a situation where like I'm really interested. The MLS can go to Apple because they have Messi, and that's
Yeah.
a worldwide draw. Which of the big four sports could survive on a streaming
NFL.
only platform? It's the NFL.
Yeah.
I think the only and basically they have that red zone now where if you don't have red zone, you're stuck whatever CTV Global, whoever has the rights is
we're getting
To the
less
end of it,
games locally,
Amazon
too.
Prime has the Thursday night, right?
Yeah.
They went streaming.
but not for every game I'm talking about.
No, I know, but
Yeah,
like that's
yeah.
the NFL's already starting that
they're-
trend.
they're
like
dipping in.
that's why
And
like
so-
They
like
did the
we get it
YouTube
on we get it
broadcast,
on
too.
yeah we
Yeah,
get it
they
on
do.
TSN here in Canada that Thursday nighter, but in the States it's on Amazon Prime. That's
Like,
it.
I-
And so like they are
honestly-
the only league that could do almost whatever the hell they want.
They can. I try to watch Monday Night Football. I try to watch the Manning cast all the time instead of the
doing worse.
actual game. What's that?
It's getting ratings are going down.
I know, but it's entertaining. I love it. I just
Who
like
doesn't like Schwarzenegger feeding a donkey
that was so
while
and
watching a game?
the Schwarzenegger critiquing Peyton about his. I don't know. I find it funny, but I think I don't know. In 10 years, is there going to be a cable network?
I don't-
Like a cable package. I mean, are the leagues going to be half and half? I mean, Mark Cuban has talked about different things of making the games available in different ways. The landscape has changed, not only of people cutting cable and not watching local news anymore. They're
Yeah.
not watching local. They're not,
Regional
they're not-
networks
Yeah,
and all that.
And listen, when I worked in television, was fighting against it. No, we don't want to put our stuff online. We want to make them the old Rocky Wirtz or
Direct
Bill
them,
Wirtz,
yeah.
make them come to the rink. Well, that's changed. Now all the networks have a streaming plan. And
Yep.
so do the sports networks.
Yep.
So Sportsnet, you want to watch the Oilers, you don't have cable, you can do it.
Yep.
Because otherwise, they're done. And more people, I don't know what their percentage is, but it's going to be over soon.
The one thing that will always work against streaming, at least for me personally, and I know I'm with others, is that it's just behind. If I'm on Twitter while watching a game, I'll see something happen on Twitter before it happens on my screen.
True.
And that annoys some people. Like, I know it annoys me. I know if I'm watching something streaming, I can't be on my phone necessarily because I might get it spoiled. And that annoys some people. So they got to figure out that lag time to make it a little closer. I don't know if they ever be able to do that. But where I'm intrigued too is that, like I mentioned, the Suns are on free TV now. Some teams have started doing that a little bit. Are we going to go back on that transition? Or like there's the teams that are going online only and bringing it in-house type thing, and there's some that are going back the old school way on
free
TV.
TV though?
It'd be like global TV here in Edmonton type thing. Like they're on one of the ABCs or something.
yeah.
That if you had
One of the locals.
if you got an HD antenna, you could throw it on and it's over the air. You can watch it. And which one's going to win out over the years? Because the one problem with streaming that we're slowly starting to see is now everyone has a streaming service. But okay, you in Canada, you got to pay for TSN, you got to pay for Sportsnet if you want to not have cable. Those are 2 streaming packs. And then, okay, do you want Netflix? Do you want Disney
that's
Plus?
just your sports,
do you want
right?
Crave?
Yeah.
Do you want what else is there? Paramount? And it's going to be okay. Well, now all of a sudden things are expensive as cable. It's not a little bit more.
That's what we
and
used to complain about with cable packages.
It's all too much.
It's like, I want these movies. It's an extra $5 a month.
I want these TV shows, but that's on this service. But I also want these TV shows, which are on this one. So I got to get both. Or how do I do this? And there's a pendulum swing away from cable. I think we're going to hit a point where we've gone too far with that, and I'm intrigued to see where we settle off.
Yeah, but
where what's the middle? How many of these streaming platforms come together and provide one service, or things like that, or where we go with all
here's
of
the
this?
thing: so you swing away from local television over to the streaming. Maybe by the time you come back, is it even going to be here anymore? Is there going to be free channels anymore? Like, is there going to be, and what network maybe in the States you can convince them, but you're not convincing Global to take Survivor off the air to put a local sports team on? There's no way.
Well, let's use a couple of our newsrooms here that we all worked at or worked closely with in years past. They're dark. They're dark in the newsrooms. The lights aren't on in half of the areas in these newsrooms.
Well, there's no sports departments.
No sports
The
departments.
first 2 television stations I started at are
Yep.
closed. Brandon and Red Deer.
Yeah.
They don't exist
Oh,
anymore.
I remember Red Deer.
Like, there's no... Red Deer, we used to have the
that one.
Flames games. We used to air Flames games on Red Deer. That was the deal.
RDTV.
RDTV.
They used to play Simpsons. They used to play a lot of good other programming too.
And it's just like, I don't know
Channel
where
52, I think, or something.
where a kid coming out of broadcasting. Well, they go to production companies now because that's they're taking over the production of sporting events now. So it's weird. The landscape is changing, and I get it. There's got to be a balance somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
You can't go 100% on cable. You can't go 100% on streaming. So they're gonna have to find a mix.
4 main stations in our city, CBC, CTV, Global. All of us work with and around those stations. City is just all stories. I don't believe they even do anything from an anchor desk anymore.
No, I believe they throw it to the
It's
other
story
person.
to story to story, and they're bringing
watched
in
them in a
younger
long time.
talent for lesser cost, and they have to VJ everything. Okay, CBC. I don't even know if they do broadcast. I know Nancy Carlson's over there, right?
Yeah, she does
But it's-
an evening
11
or
o'clock.
like six and stuff.
Okay, so they're still doing it. I don't know what their viewership is like, but it's almost, to me, I'm sure there's some staunch CBC viewers and listeners certainly, and they're always going to have the financial backing, but I don't think it registers as much as Global and CTV did.
No.
Global, I mean, their newsroom is getting smaller and smaller and smaller, and then look at CTV. Like, I mean, our station got cut. We're in that building, and then we would look into that newsroom, and every reporter is now a VJ. So they have to shoot their own stuff. They have to edit their own stuff, which was unheard of even 10 years ago.
I wasn't even allowed to. I actually literally kicked an editor out of an edit suite one time because my curling highlights were not going to make it on the air. And I had to go in and do it. And I got in trouble because it's like,
Union.
We have a union. And that was but it goes to your point where I wasn't allowed to touch a camera.
Yep.
I wasn't allowed to touch an edit suite. Well, now camera guys are editors and reporters are camera people and things like that. So it's crazy the fact that, when I was at Global, we were behind CTV, and then the ratings, they brought in a more accurate ratings, and we surpassed them. And I think Global is still ahead of CTV in the ratings.
I think Global wins Edmonton, CTV takes the rural
the
part
rural,
of it.
sure,
When you
yeah.
add in the rural, they do a little better.
Yeah, but they're both of their Adam Cook is no longer there. Darcy Seaton is a photographer.
Yeah.
Grayson Knutson is now at Global. Those were the three sports
Was he
people.
back at Global?
Yeah,
Good for
that
Knutz.
were at CTV.
Knutz was my weather guy in Lloyd when
there
I
you
was
go,
the 6,
yeah.
6 o'clock
And see,
anchor.
that Lloyd is the
Yeah.
one of the stations that's still around.
Yeah.
So it's a changing game. And then over at Global, you had myself and Carius and Johnny. And well, all of us are gone now because
Yeah.
they got rid of the sports department. Slav was there as well, and
He's still there, but he's
as
doing news.
He's a news
Slav
reporter.
left,
Quinn left.
and then went
You
back.
need- yeah.
Quinn left.
Is now
So
Explorer.
it's
Yeah.
like, and we were hearing about the threats of losing the sports department forever when we were there the whole time, and it's just that. So the days of where Jamie Thomas, who was at City TV, and we were roommates, and we would call each other, be like, "What are you covering today?" Okay, I'll cover that too. So make sure we didn't miss anything.
Right.
The days of having a weekend sports or just a sports person are gone.
Yeah.
Like I was out in Vancouver this past weekend. They did a couple of Lions highlights because of the final, but like Jay Durant does something totally different now than sports. I don't even know if Squire is still there. Like everywhere, sports is gone from local markets. I don't know who is going to do the up and coming stories on these profiles and whatever. You literally get any sports now from the national networks, meaning you get zero from the local market. I don't know where you will ever see AJHL highlights other than on social media. We at the Saints, we try to put out a package every night on social media. That is where you get your local sports highlights. The teams have to do it. They have to put it out. They have to work so much harder. Because before you would just tweet a response, "Hey, check out our highlights at 11."
Yep.
Or well, I guess we didn't have Twitter when that was happening, but you know what I mean.
But,
You relied
but when
on
you're on Global or CTV or something, there was
you
an audience
relied,
that they could
now,
show and all that.
you have to get your highlights. You have to take them. It's like you're your producer, your own editor. It's like doing a podcast. You're everything, and the team has to do it, and they have to promote it because
and then they have to find the audience
covering.
to promote
That's
it too, right?
So
Like they don't have a built-in audience already
it's
there.
So much, they're not getting their 45 seconds at 6 o'clock. That might make somebody say, "I want to go check out that game,"
Right.
Or just know what's going on. I remember, like, not to, give us a little too much credit or anything like that, but I know I saw some people over the summer going, "Oh, I didn't know this sport was happening because I got stuff from 1260."
Sure,
Like,
that's right.
oh, I completely forgot this was happening. And it's just like when you lose all that media, it's just even just hearing that one thing.
There's a reminder.
Oh, yeah, that's happening. Or,
right.
hey, the Bears are playing in a football game this past week. Like if you're, last week we were talking about it, it's like, oh, Bears are in the Hardy Cup. Oh, I didn't know that. It's just
how many people
catching
didn't know that? Like
Right,
how many
right.
people did not know that? Newspapers are dead.
Yeah.
Now there's less sports radio.
point.
There's less TV. Like I just
press level at Oilers games. It's a ghost town in those intermissions
Isn't that
compared
crazy?
to what it was a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago. Like we were
like
there.
what it used to be at
that got-
Rexall,
because of that
man.
it got
Remember what it was
promoted.
like at Rexall,
It was
where
buzzing.
it was
So who's the who?
appointment, and you wanted to sometimes the intermissions were better than the actual games during that
Yes.
decade of darkness, where you would talk and you get together. It was a meeting place, and that's sad. It's like I've gone to some Oil King games, and that's even
There's nothing.
Yeah.
less, right? There's Guy and Andrew and
the play-by-play people.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
maybe a reporter.
some scouts. I see Mike Fraser from Everett there every once in a while, but like that's it.
The Elks don't have it.
Elks,
When I
it's
first
rough,
started covering
man.
the Elks, it was
packed.
cameraman had a stand.
Yeah.
Because all the seats were filled
That's
up.
right.
And then it's now anyone can go in and get a seat, basically.
It used to
in
be
there.
multiple writers from each paper
Yep,
locally.
3 from each. You had Canada Press.
yeah.
Now you have
Sportsnet
one, right?
would be there.
One writer from
Maybe
both
one.
papers.
There'd be 1260. There's Ched. There was all sorts of different people.
There's
and then,
3 TV stations.
Yeah.
Like it was
There's-
wild.
But now it's all gone.
It is such in 20 years, this is my 20th year living in Edmonton, to see it change so much. And, the first 10 of it was on television.
Yep.
The last 10 split between radio and getting into this news. So for something to
For Vengeance
happen
Media.
in 20 years is just wild.
And that's where I'm intrigued, like where this decade takes us with all of this, and because I like there at some point we're gonna somebody's gonna have the grand idea of cable again, right? Like or be like having everything like there's gonna be all these streaming services type thing. Somebody's gonna have the grand idea, be like, what if there was a way to have it all on one thing? And when does that conversation happen? When do we switch back to that? Because
What
I'm
I'm worried about is AI. Is at what point does AI write the news story?
That's the one that.
At what point does AI read the news story on television? At what point are you just looking at a avatar that is perfect and never makes a mistake, never messes a word up,
right?
And it's all written. There's no writers. There's no anchors. We already don't have studio. When I was at Global, they got rid of the studio people, and we had robotics.
You guys were running Halifax.
I was doing Halifax's sports in Edmonton, so it's already downsized. So at what point is an AI writing all the stories and reading it all?
Didn't a Japanese station do a full CGI broadcast with like?
It's
CGI
one of the reasons the
news
strike
anchors.
just happened for the SAG and the writers and the actors is because AI. They want, it's not the main reason, but it was one of the big reasons is that they don't want writers replaced with AI. They want humans writing scripts, and this is what I worry about with like at some point instead of. Gord's not there anyway. Caroline Devaney or Aaron Nisfeld, who's also
not there,
also
right?
leaving. Yeah,
because
but at what point is it just an avatar? Just a screen, and they're never making a mistake. Like it's just weird, and it worries me.
I think the one change that the news is trying to do instead, actually, kind of, is to have just a national news. It's all done in one location, but they'll have one reporter in each city that will give you that. Oh, let's
like
hear,
what TSN does.
What's the story?
Sportsnet with a
What's the story happening in Edmonton? Somebody will come on, do the story.
Yeah, and so
but it's going to be a national news.
You're right.
Now, and we're going to get rid of local news, or at least that's kind of what Bell is, I think, kind of trying to.
But
push
that
towards.
happened in a way that has happened because remember, like Dan Colby was the stringer in Red Deer when I was there for CTV.
Dan.
So CTV did have. Like Global bought RDTV and all that, so they had a station there, didn't? But that's what they would do. You have a stringer in Fort McMurray. That's what they called him, a reporter, because they were out, I guess, on a string. I don't know why they called it that, but you had people in these remote locations.
Yes.
And now you're that's a good
But
point.
now we're doing with the
you
major
have Toronto,
cities.
and then you have one reporter in Edmonton, just like Rashog and Gene Principe do the same thing for Sportsnet. You would have the CTV reporter, you would have the Global reporter, and so we would CTV. I think actually used to insert a local segment into their newscast for the Red Deer area because when you lived in Red Deer, you would get Edmonton or whatever, and then there would be like a 15-minute local segment put in. Well, now it's probably 15 seconds,
right?
You know, because they don't even have anybody there, but it's probably the way it's going.
And it made sense with the smaller markets, you know, because then it's okay. Focus on the Edmonton, but we'll cover Alberta in a sense. Nationally, there's going to be like when you have a city like Edmonton or Calgary, let's say, there's going to be a lot of stories that will never then get reported because you only get the one airtime or the one story you're going to put out there, and it's going to be what was the murder of today.
I would be
that's
worried.
The story, and that's
I would be worried if I was a sports reporter in like a guy like Rashog or Gene. Well, maybe not so much Gene because they have the rights.
The broadcast, yeah.
But if there's no McDavid here, what is the hook for TSN to have or Sportsnet if they didn't have the rights?
Well, Oilers fans are crazy about the team. I think is what would make that job.
Winnipeg
survive.
fans are pretty crazy about their team too.
Yeah,
Calgary fan, like I'm just saying, is there as these networks tighten up?
Yeah,
do they say, okay, we're not going to have a stringer here? Like I'm not sure. John Liu went from Montreal to Winnipeg, so there's all these kind of moving parts. I thought, well, is Montreal not having a so
they don't really have
Kenzie Lalonde.
Oh yeah, Kenzie Lalonde.
Oh right. Yeah. So it's at some point you worry about if there's no superstar here and like as long as McDavid is here, I don't think that anybody has a problem because you're always going to want somebody where McDavid is. But when does that start happening at the national level on the sports side? Okay, that TSN and Sportsnet just gutted their newsrooms over the last couple of years.
Yeah.
If there's no superstar in this town, okay, they pull the person out. Like I'm not sure if there's a person in Winnipeg, a TSN reporter.
Well, John.
Oh, sorry, John Liu, because they have the rights.
Yeah.
If they don't have the rights, is John Liu there? I don't know. Is there a Sportsnet guy there?
Yeah, it's Sean Reynolds.
But he's very part-time, isn't he?
No, he's a full-time guy. He does some hockey night stuff too. They still have.
That's what I look at is the pullback of.
Maybe that's an indicator that we're like, who's there? Do they still have a bureau guy there? And I was going to bring this up. It's an observation with our national sports networks, which we have done work for, obviously. I think that those shows, the Staples, the Sports Centers, the Sportsnet Centrals, it also feels like they're starting to get away from actually focusing on sports, or they'll pick the Monday nighter and you'll have Jay talk with Luke Wilson for 30 minutes about this stupid game that nobody.
Conversational instead of the highlight.
And it's becoming more of like the quick hits Instagram bar down stuff, which I don't think is.
I
of
do not
much
need to
value.
see a TikTok video when I'm watching
crap.
SportsCenter.
It is honestly.
I could go on
crap.
TikTok if I want.
I'm like, why is the TSN feed? God bless them. I worked for them a little bit. Why is it giving me some like, what's the hot click of the day? Why am I seeing Marissa Roberto telling me something about a player's style walking into the game instead of telling me about what the hell happened in a game that I might have two craps about?
Because nobody was watching highlight shows anymore. Everybody was getting them hours earlier. Yep. Like nobody is waiting up till 11 o'clock to watch local sports unless their kid is on it.
Right.
Nobody is waiting until 11 o'clock to watch SportsCenter or whatever it might be. They're getting it all here. So then what do the networks do? Well, we got to change. We got to do what they're doing.
Yeah,
because nobody cares about watching highlights anymore.
Because there is no point.
Like
I'll find whatever.
If
I miss a Manchester United soccer game, for instance, I know Fubo's the national rights holder here in Canada.
Yeah.
So I know an hour after the game they'll give me a 6-minute highlight video on YouTube. I'll go watch it and I got my highlights. I don't need to go to Sportsnet.
Yeah.
I don't need to go to
you see every
TSN
goal posted
to get it
on social
because
media.
I can find whatever I want whenever I want by switching.
Twitter is basically your red zone now.
You
don't have it all as convenient, but you can find every goal of every night on social media.
Yeah.
I just today we wanted to play the Adam Ernie. I wanted to play the elbow.
Right.
I just quickly Googled Adam Ernie.
Exactly.
3 videos popped up right away. I picked the one I wanted, and boom, we were showing it on our YouTube video, and that's just where it's going.
I think why they looked at it and said, okay, our minute-and-a-half highlight packs over and over with sound bites are not doing it, and except for the playoffs. We got to do because everybody's going here. I think that's where they went.
But I think it's crappy, empty content.
I would rather see
filling time.
Jay and Luke Wilson talking about the game that just happened than a TikTok video of someone's travel to the Women's World Cup this year and her whole travel day. I don't care about that. I'll go on TikTok for that.
Clips,
give me something of like, I know we don't want the highlights, but give me some sort of substance then. Give me some sort of conversation between two figures.
I know.
Talking about the game or why did,
something of
whatever.
Of substance. Like when you probably went through this as well. When I first started doing the post-game show, we ran a ton of post-game clips. Like we used to run a lot, and then you get to the point where you're like, well, we don't have to run as much, right?
Yeah.
When you start, you're filling time. It's like we got to fill time, and then you're like, okay, let's fill with substance instead of just let's get quality instead of quantity or whatever. So I would rather see a good highlight pack of actual stuff that interests me and educates me. Mm-hmm. Then I would like to see some intelligent conversation. We've all done pregame, we've all done postgame interviews. They're all mostly awful. The odd time, like 5% of the time, you maybe get something good. 95% of the time, you're getting regurgitated questions because we're not reinventing the wheel, and answers, right? And if you do get something good, maybe it's because the player's being a jerk or the media guy's being the jerk, and that's gotcha TV, right?
Yeah.
So if there's a good post-game clip, if it provides substance, but I kind of, like you, Matthew, I'd rather see an intelligent conversation where people aren't just reacting on the spur of the moment. That has its time and place too, but it's about finding that balance, and I think the media watching public got sick of highlight clip over and over again.
I've seen it. That's where people go. And like, honestly, even just pick each game, grab 2 plays, and have an analyst there to break down those 2 plays of why something happened and why that changed the game or something. And that might be your highlight show.
Like bar down, when it became a big thing at TSN, I would watch that. I'm like, what is this? This is like...
I watched the Top Prospects game last year, and I'm like, as much as I like to know this guy likes cheeseburgers, I'd really like to know a little bit more about his game.
Yeah.
It's got a balance.
There's a balance.
There's a balance, right?
Struck. Yeah,
I would rather see 70% hockey and 30% funny stuff.
Personality.
And, my brother told me one time when I got into television, he's like, you don't have to be a stand-up comedian all the time. You don't have to fill your highlight package with one-liners and jokes.
Yeah.
Every once in a while is okay. You're not stand-up. You're there to provide. And I think like you said, we've gone a little bit more to the shtick, sort of thing, and it has its place, but
absolutely.
it can't be 70%. It has to be in my opinion.
Yeah.
People are different, right? You know, like morning shows are different than the afternoon and the 100%. Night and things like that, and so you have different people tuning in for different things.
Yeah.
But ultimately, you're there for sports to watch and learn about what happened that night.
Be up to date, and discuss and process. But yeah, I was just like, some days I'm just like, what am I watching? This is what's filling our time now.
This is why I still love PTI. It's still on the air.
PTI
it's still the
is
same
great.
show, but that's what I want.
Around
just two
the
guys
Horn
talking
is
about
great.
it, and they're
30
just having
years
a
for
conversation.
PTI or something like that? Or 20 years maybe?
So I'm 32.
It's got to be
20
30,
some years.
We
it's
watched
20 some years. It's not 30.
Oh no, you know what? It was Off the Record I watched when
I loved Off the Record.
When I got into broadcasting in the 90s, that's when that show happened, and then everybody was copying it. PTI must be 20 years.
2021.
Kornheiser and Wilbon.
So they just passed their 22nd year anniversary. I've watched the majority of it.
And then reality, you know,
Around the Horn's fantastic.
it's like a spin-off, right?
Yeah.
Like it's like, what do they call that when the one character gets his own show?
Spin-off.
Is
Yeah,
that what-
spin-off.
it
Yeah,
was a
it's a
spin-off.
spin-off.
So he got a spin-off of his own show on Around the Horn.
No,
which
that
is-
was actually
wasn't it reality?
Reality
somebody
was-
hosted that before reality, actually.
Yeah.
And he took over.
Yeah,
Around
Reality
the
was-
Horn?
Yeah, yes.
Reality was the producer
On
on
Stats Boy.
PTI.
PTI, yeah, Stats Boy.
And there was actually Around the Horn might be a spin-off of PTI anyways, but there was a
somebody
host
him.
before
But
reality, if I'm not
did-
mistaken.
he went from
but then
show to
he
show,
did Stat
right,
Boy
yeah.
and he did it, and they were in the same studio actually. It was right next to it. But then he
they would
then
always throw
started
the
doing some
paper
stuff
at
on
the end.
Good Morning America or something. So he moved to New York, and then he was done on PTI. And I can't remember the last time like he did. That was years ago.
It's a good show, and it's a perfect concept. 30 seconds or whatever on it, or although they go over all the time.
yeah.
But it really was like perfect. And they were good. They are so good together, right? Like they're, you know,
I'm
and
gonna say they're like yin and yang.
I don't know
Frick
how
and
that
frack.
they've had some good people that have filled in or something, but I don't know how that show continues when they retire. Like when Tony Kornheiser's ready to be done, I don't think it's going to be the same. Like when Frank Izola's on with Wilbon, it's fine.
Sure.
It'll continue that way. But the Kornheiser Wilbon connection,
That is PTI.
Yeah.
It starts and ends with those two, right? And
One
then
of
they
the-
have to find some other
one of the best
something
parts
else.
of my career is something I did got onto PTI.
What?
Yeah. So when Mark Spector had a show at 1260, this was during the lockout. We had Mike Babcock of all people on because he was always willing to talk, and he said something about
what did he ask for your photos first?
Oddly enough, yes.
he said that.
Give me your flip phone.
His comment was something about like hockey's on the verge of becoming bowling or something like that with this lockout. And Spec sent the audio, got me to send the audio to Sportsnet. Because I think Principe said this is a good clip, so sent it to them. And PTI talked about that clip. Now they credited Sportsnet, not Team 1260. But I was like, that's me. I got that quote. That was us. And so that made my day. Because
That's a cool moment.
It's a great show.
It is.
It honestly is
I used to
awesome.
record it on a VHS.
Really?
I would
so
set
good.
the record on the VHS to record, so when I came home from school, I could watch it. And when the recording didn't happen, I was always devastated. So that is absolutely my go-to. This is the EST Hangout. Matt Iwanyk, Tom Gazzola, Dean Millard with you. You're free to go whenever and send in YouTube Trev if you
I'm
want.
having fun actually. If YouTube Trev just wants to come in.
Yeah, Trev, you can come in if you want at any point.
What time is it?
It's
It's
already
an
an
hour already.
Here,
Yeah.
So this is the one thing I wanted to get into.
I don't even notice there's a camera here.
I know.
Like
great.
you're literally
Just go.
just
It's 'cause it's
hanging
probably
out
too far
and
away.
talking.
Yeah.
It's so fun.
I want it cleaned it up in here too. There's more
Did I?
room to frolic.
I
It
did not
seems like.
clean
Well, you put
anything
the secondary cameras that are supposed
Yeah.
to be the tight shots, which we haven't incorporated yet.
Yeah.
Are just leaning up against the wall instead.
Well, I
got to
use those for the watch party next week. When we do the
Oh,
watch
that's
along.
going to be great.
Yeah,
I'm
we're
looking
going to do
forward
that. We won't do
yeah.
it in here, though.
No.
Movers and Shakers brought to you by Marco and Mike Realty, Realty One Group Insider. Buying or selling, give Marco and Mike the old PTO contract. Let them prove to you why they're the best team for the job. You won't be disappointed. Visit marcoandmike.com for more information. Just back to expansion talk. I don't know if you guys saw this week, Adam Silver talking about expansion. Obviously, Seattle's in there. Obviously, Vegas is in there. Mexico City was thrown out. Vancouver was thrown out. But he also threw Montreal in there.
Well, you know why? Because that is instant one of the top stories in Canada when he says that. I don't know if he's serious. I don't know if he's genuine, but I know he gets a lot of people talking in Canada when he says the name Montreal. I would love it if they could build a new stadium, indoor, obviously, because you don't want to go through
For basketball?
Oh, sorry. I thought you said Manfred.
No, silver. NBA.
NBA.
Sorry, I thought you
Maybe
said
I
Rob Manfred.
No, NBA.
Sorry, I
they
was way
throw
off.
expansion in the NBA for Montreal.
Wow.
Like Vancouver,
Okay.
Seattle, Mexico City, and
Oh, wow. I thought you were
Vegas
talking baseball.
No, they
Sorry.
were. Silver was talking about like those cities, like expansion,
Really?
and relocation.
How
But
could
he
you
threw
not throw out
Montreal.
Vancouver?
He did. No, like in Vancouver, but he also out of nowhere, like no one has. I had never thought of Montreal for this, but it said Vancouver, said Vegas, said Seattle, said Mexico City, and also Montreal was thrown out.
So, like, they're expanding how many teams? 1, 2? These are just options that he's talking about?
The
you
NHL's
want a
expand
coffee?
too. They'll do a couple more.
good, thanks.
Who's not here?
Eric's asking.
Oh, okay.
Do you know what's coffee? Sorry.
Well, thanks for the ask. Oh, did I get a text
Yes,
too?
you got a text
Hey, look at
too.
that. I did too. I'm good, Eric, if you're listening. I never would have like Montreal.
Yeah.
Obviously, baseball. We're gonna have
Sure,
the
yeah,
chat
yeah.
because they have the Expos or had the Expos and that conversation.
Yeah.
But basketball now thrown in there. And look. If we're gonna talk about the NHL wanting to do even more teams than what they are right now, they made
are.
what did they get from Seattle? 650.
Yeah.
What's an NBA expansion team gonna go for? It's
Billion.
Bill. It's a bill. So why
Well-
wouldn't you do 2 to 4 teams in that? Like it's either 2 or 4.
Like we're talking 36 teams in the NHL, by the way.
Yeah, by the end of the decade,
Yeah.
hopefully for that. Or
And
the
Salt
NHL
Lake,
saying hopefully.
Salt Lake is next.
When is it enough? Like,
I don't know.
How? Well, you can't go 36.
That's what they're talking about.
Arizona
I'm with
won.
you, Dino.
Arizona is not staying.
So
There's no way Arizona is going to stay.
They'll
man.
relocate.
They're going to relocate.
Yeah.
But then they'll want to get to Houston.
So you're
They'll
going
want
to
to
go
get to
4
Salt
teams?
Lake. They'll want to get back to Atlanta.
Apparently.
They'll want to go to Kansas City.
Yeah.
And that means I need one more team because I relocated Phoenix in there. You need one more city, which honestly,
Or Quebec.
No, not going to happen.
I think
there's
Toronto.
another
I
American
think Toronto
city-
gets it.
city,
Hartford
yeah.
maybe.
No, not Hartford.
Well,
Utah?
okay.
Did you say
Well,
Salt Lake?
Yeah, Salt
'cause
Lake
there's-
is, like, next.
So Salt Lake,
They're ready to go to
Houston,
Kansas
Salt
City?
Lake right
Kansas
away.
City, Atlanta. Those
Yeah.
are the 4.
Yeah.
Maybe Portland.
Portland would be like a sleeper pick, but
Like they're
to go back to the Montreal thing for
They
the
just have
NBA.
no interest in Canada.
The corporate money, like there's huge concerns with Winnipeg right now.
Oh, I know.
Yeah, and like league people were talking about it when they were here for the Heritage Classic. They're like, "Oh yeah, we're worried about Winnipeg," but they do have deep pockets with that ownership group.
They have one of the richest owners in the
Exactly,
league.
and
And listen, everything is hard right now. Grocery stores are expensive. Families are not choosing the Jets over, and
over food.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be back to what it was, where kids are
You gotta
coming to
turn up
City
your mic.
Hall
Piggy
with their
banks.
piggy banks.
Yeah.
in the
Oh, that
19.
first
I was
favorite.
living in Winnipeg in 1996,
Yeah.
watching that. It was heartbreaking. But how can the NBA look at Montreal and the NHL not? Like, if they're even throwing it out there, I just don't understand how you can do that. And listen, I will fully admit I'm not well versed on the Quebec sports market other than hockey, and obviously I think football is very popular there.
yeah,
I had no idea that the NBA would be a draw, but I don't understand that. How can the NBA say, "Hey, we think Montreal or something could work," and the NHL say it can't when we're hockey? That doesn't make sense to me. How is the corporate dollars there for basketball but not hockey?
I think that Montreal, like in baseball, gets used as a red herring to send a shockwave to other potential markets in the
Maybe
league
Vancouver
to get their asses going.
Vancouver more involved,
Yeah.
excited. Maybe do you
Yeah.
think it's like maybe I was on the right path
Yeah.
with that anyway?
They
But
totally
it
use
doesn't make
them.
sense. How can that be?
It's like Quebec City. Whenever we talk hockey relocation and expansion, just throw a team in Quebec. They have the arena. I feel so bad for fans of the Quebec Nordiques, of hockey in Quebec City, because they are being used and abused by the NHL as a red herring to get other markets and other potential owners to get their butts in gear and to make some moves and get their money put their money where their mouth is. Essentially, they're not going back to Quebec City.
That's too bad.
That's too bad.
I still think it's going to happen.
Yeah,
at
listen,
some
we
point. I
thought
think at
that
some
in
point-
Winnipeg, though.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
was every
Okay.
year for
We'll get-
20 years.
Get someone with $27 billion to put a team in that market and say, I need the corporate dollars too. Apparently, the corporate dollars aren't there because there's not a lot of head offices in Quebec City
Yeah.
to support a team in an 18,000 seat arena.
I asked Ray Ferraro on our show Game Changers the other day about Hartford, And he said, the fan base is great, but the same thing. He just doesn't see it happening going back to Wales. So
I just think the why I could see it one day happening is that at some point you just sit there and you go, if you're expanding to 36, they might go, we'll go to 38, and it's naturally, okay, we'll finally just go there. Like straight, the money's going to be there. We'll take the expansion money and whatever. We'll live with it. If we have to relocate them like, 20 years from now, we will. But it's like LA in the NFL for the longest time was, well, this team will move to LA. A team can move to LA. It was that backup plan that you could threaten other cities with. Like, we'll go to LA. I think Quebec City kind of is that for the NHL, where they ultimately don't go there for the longest time. But at some point, you throw them you finally have to go, okay, we're going to Quebec City, and let's give this a try.
Look how many people tried to buy the Ottawa Senators.
Yeah. Well,
what about one of them says we can make it work in Quebec?
I think before we have a team in Quebec City, the next Canadian team, if there is one via expansion or relocation, will be in Toronto.
It has to be.
I think they do Toronto too before they go back to Quebec City.
Why wouldn't you do Hamilton then?
Because the corporate dollars won't do Hamilton.
Right.
You're going to want to sell Toronto. You're going to want to have the Toronto Arrows or whatever the hell you're going to want to call it. You're going to want the Toronto dollars for those corporate teams, because what corporation in Toronto that has head office is going to sit there and go, why would we be with a Hamilton team?
We can be in Mississauga instead.
Honestly, they could go put the team in Hamilton if they want, but it's got to have Toronto in the first part of the name. It's got to be Toronto. And I'm with you. Like, I know the Leafs are going to push back for the longest time against that, but eventually the NHL and the other owners are going to sit there and go, we have how many teams in New York? We have 3 teams in the LA market.
Yep.
The NFL can have 2 teams in the LA market and in New York. Baseball could have 2 teams in Chicago, LA, New York market. This is a hockey mad country. It's a hockey mad city. 4 million people. How many people aren't from Toronto that live in Toronto now? Let's give them their own team. Yeah. And boom, we're going to go there. Somebody will have the money and pay for a new arena there to have 2 separate NHL teams.
And they'll pay off the Leafs, and MLS.
Why are you shaking your head?
Will be like, it's all good.
I can't do another Toronto team.
It'd be awful.
It would be terrible.
News, the Leafs dominate 18 minutes of Sports Center to start, and then
television across the country.
I like
Toronto fixes everything,
right?
But that team will win a Stanley Cup before the Leafs. Calling it right now. The first Stanley Cup won in Toronto since the last one is going to be by a team not named the Toronto Maple Leafs.
That'd be funny.
Take that, amazing. Toronto.
Yeah, I'd love that.
I'm going after Toronto.
Sign me up for that, actually.
Hello, YouTube, Trev.
How's it going, guys? How are we doing today?
I don't know if I just have
It's too much money.
Like,
there's way too much money on the table for that.
Toronto is a big city, but it's not New York and it's not LA. Like,
you're
confident 2 NHL teams can operate in that.
If we're a hockey mad country, that is the biggest city we have.
Well, for a hockey mad country, it should work in Quebec. Come on.
Sure,
but 500,000 people in Quebec City.
But how many
head offices?
How many head offices are in Toronto that also they can't be part of the Leafs?
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden,
maybe
boom.
The Leafs are sold out. We can't go to them.
The only thing that I think holds this up a little bit
Toronto team.
is TSN and Sportsnet both own the Leafs. How does that all shake out?
What happens if TSN and Sportsnet become a shell of what they already are?
No, I know, but it's...
What happens if TSN and Sportsnet become the same company?
Oof.
It happened with the papers.
Yeah.
Look at the papers. They're owned by the same company.
Yeah, there's not many separate.
Sportsnet and TSN were owned by the same company at one point. They had to break away, right?
So it's in Canada, we get shafted for airlines, cell service, and
Cell's bad.
Maybe
Cable.
TV networks at some point too, right? If I could fly to Mexico for the price it's costing me to fly to Manitoba at Christmas.
Fly to Europe.
It's so crazy.
Yeah.
And cell service, the same thing. And it's because there's not enough companies.
Yeah.
We have 2 sports networks in Canada that monopolize they own the teams, they own the rights and everything. So
this is why I think Bell would want to get involved with an Expos team to get into the baseball market, because Sportsnet owns it. They own the baseball team. If you want to get into the baseball rights of games or something, why would you not want to be involved with the Expos in some way and try to bring them in and be a part owner of it or something?
Maybe because they're looking at what's happening in Winnipeg after the 10-year honeymoon. Like, I know COVID has, and the pandemic and the recession has had a big, massive dent in that. But, the Winnipeg Jets were drafting Mark Scheifele in 2011, and now they're getting 11,000 people.
Yeah.
Because I was talking with Haas about that. Part of that is he said it was COVID actually delayed it, but there was a reckoning coming in Winnipeg because when they went on their playoff runs, ticket prices were jacked up big time. And for
that
that
happens
market,
everywhere,
I know, but
right?
for that market, it was tough. And it basically, he said it almost bankrupted the city basically because everyone was buying those playoff tickets and stuff. And there was a huge disconnect with the city. And COVID hit. And so people didn't have to pay for season tickets because they couldn't go. And in fact, they got a credit for their previous tickets. And that's why we've seen this reckoning come here where there's been a huge disconnect with what the market could pay and what the Jets are charging.
Scalding Gord texts in 780-218-9999. Paris Jewelers inbox says, between the expansion fee and the territory fee to the Leafs would be far too high to make a second team possible. I don't think it could happen. Scalding Gord, I think there are companies and people with very, very deep pockets out there that see how lucrative a second team in Toronto could be, that they would pay all of that off. Or
How much did the Sens go for?
950 mil, I believe.
Just under $1 billion.
Yeah.
What would a Toronto second market go for? And it would sell.
1.5, 2.
Yeah. And they would pay the territory fee to the Leafs to make that MLSE be quiet. How much do you want?
It'd be at
Here
least
you
a
go.
1.5,
Yeah,
right?
and then they would pay
if
the league fee.
Senators are selling for almost $1 billion,
Yeah.
you're at least getting $500 million
Yeah.
more than that in I think.
And
like
maybe
$1.5
it would-
billion.
2023 Forbes rankings have the Leafs valued at $2.65 billion.
So you
If
get a
someone
couple
pays,
of billionaires
and that's
together.
I think US. That would be
Done.
US.
Yeah.
You know, somebody would pay the $1.5 billion or whatever it is to get the Leafs because it's worth.
Well,
that
look
much.
at the
It's
groups
worth
that tried
much.
to buy the Senators.
Yes.
A bunch of them like Ryan Reynolds and
Snoop Dogg.
Yeah, whoever.
What about Snoop
They
Dogg?
go on and they say, "Here, let's buy an expansion team." And then it's ours, like you said, the whole thing. I mean,
And it won't be hard to sell corporate dollars because there are so much corporations that have had offices in Toronto that it's okay, who's with the Leafs? Okay, let's go to everyone else. And the money will be there.
Yeah.
Like, I know it seems like a lot, but that is a market that will bring in a bunch of cash. Yeah. And it will happen. Like, it will happen in my lifetime.
it just seems so weird to be
Quebec
talking
City.
about that much money when every corporation out there right now is crying about the recession. But then they're going to find
But we
Because
keep
they're
hearing
also
about
they're
$1.5
crying
billion
about
to buy this hockey team.
they're crying about that while also telling their investors we hit record
Sure.
revenue this year.
The-
Record profit.
all these record. I mean, our old business daddy is crushing it on the.
I don't know if we had record profit with them or something. I'd have to
Not
look
on
into
the
that.
Bell
But
Media
I know,
side, but Bell in general.
Well, I know like Loblaws and stuff. They keep talking about record profits
Yeah.
and stuff like that, and
Yeah.
we're paying what at the grocery stores.
And then they try to sell themselves as the everyman, and it's like, yeah, you're the
It's-
richest guy in Canada or second. Yeah, it's like
Toronto is a massive market still, and and somebody will pay that money. Someone will come up and they'll have to buy a new facility because you can't in hockey. You can't share a facility, right? You can't change the ice.
With Giants
it's
and
not like that. Well, you got the logo on the ice.
no, they would build it.
You'd have to have a own facility because
Yeah.
you can't change the ice, center
Yeah.
ice, right?
Well, it takes time, but you can.
You'd
do
have to
it.
melt it, and you're not doing that in between games, right?
Well, I
so
don't think-
you would
yeah.
have to have a brand
It's
new
a-
arena for it, and somebody would do it, somebody would build it. They'll have that money, and it'll be huge.
You'd have to like
And
they
people
do that
hate it
in
at West.
MSG. They have a game in the morning and a game at night, right?
but not
Basketball.
hockey, right? That's the difference.
Matthew, they would definitely build a new arena.
You have
in
no,
one
no.
of
I'm
the
saying like
suburbs.
logistically,
Yeah,
you can't
yeah.
play in the same facility because the Leafs have their logo on center ice at the Scotiabank.
Well, you could. You would just put one logo on one side and the other logo on the other side of the ice. But you're right. You would. They would
They
definitely
have to
want
have to.
They would want their own. Then they would
Because
want
changing
their
a
own.
court is different. You take the court, you undo it, put it away, and put the other court out, right? Or in hockey, you put over top of the ice.
Yeah.
So you can't have two pieces of ice surface.
No.
Because you're melting. And
Yeah,
so somebody would have
logistically you can't do
So you'd have to pay the Leafs off. You'd have to pay an expansion fee, and you'd have to build an arena.
Correct.
But the thing is, there's enough money you'd make for doing all of that.
Yeah.
Hey, Manchester United
That's
selling
so crazy.
25% of their franchise, only 25% for a few billion.
At some point, the money is like maybe it's not going to dry up
because then when do the Saudis jump on board?
Yeah. Well, you got to let people in your league, right? Then the NHL gets to choose. As Jim Balsillie found out, not everybody gets to barge their way into the league.
Yeah.
Checks and zeros have a strange way of changing that for some people.
Yeah.
You add a few extra zeros onto your check. But you know what? You guys are probably right. Maybe I'm thinking too small, that Canada's too small. But maybe Toronto can support 2 NHL teams.
I thought it was crazy too, Dino, and then it kept getting brought up by people from out of market whenever they were visiting here, or I'd be somewhere, and they're like, Toronto 2, man. Toronto number 2.
I've been on this train for a long time.
Yeah.
It's really wild to think about it, but I could see Hamilton, but right in Toronto.
No.
And is this why the NHL never wanted to go to Hamilton, do you think? Like,
Well, the
they've
Leafs would always
had this in their
No.
But
I think it's because
if you're going to go to Toronto, you're going to have to deal with the Leafs anyway. They're going to have to deal with them at some point. And I'm wondering, has this always been in their back pocket? We don't want to go to Hamilton because if you go to Hamilton, then you can't go to Toronto.
No.
Right.
I think one of the thing that really hurt Jim Balsillie was he dictated how things were
Barging
going.
his way in,
He came in, tried taking over the Pens, then he took over. He tried buying the Predators, and before anything happened, he was selling tickets in Hamilton.
Yeah.
And when you go to the NHL, and when the NHL's looking, they're going, "You're doing what with the franchise you don't own yet, and you haven't been welcome in our league yet." It became a war of "We'll take you on."
I want to
take
watch
you down.
that documentary because there's Jim Balsillie in this hand, right?
Yeah.
Didn't get a franchise. And there's Chipman and everybody in Winnipeg who stayed
Quiet.
absolutely quiet.
Came out of nowhere.
They had said nothing. Every time they were asked, they and then they got a franchise because they played the NHL's game.
Correct.
And like it or not, you have to play their game because it's their league.
And
And,
that-
Jim Balsillie tried to be the bully, and the Winnipeg group, True North, just sat back, bid their time,
Yep.
and went.
Was it Barroway in Arizona?
Yeah.
Like, that was its own circus. Like, that guy, he's
that
a
whole
hedge
area.
fund guy.
Oh, right, yeah.
And
That's there. I cannot wait for the Coyotes.
yeah.
30 and 30 whatever documentary that comes out after they move.
Well,
when
to
will they
go
move,
through
though?
Everything.
They're still trying to build another rink.
Right.
I know.
So-
it's inevitable.
They're getting openly mocked
We've
by
said that
players.
for how long, though,
Yeah.
Dino?
Yeah, but
we
they-
said it's inevitable for the last like
they cannot
6 years.
play in a 5,000.
I know, but they're
seat
going to
rink.
keep trying to build a new facility.
Right,
And that's
but
the thing. It's just like
at some point, no matter even if there is pictures of Gary Bettman that is forcing the Coyotes to stay
Like a Costanza.
in Arizona, eventually they're like the league is going to have to say the other owners. Like
Yeah.
Gary Bettman works for the owners,
Right.
and the other owners are going to say, "Okay, enough is enough. This is ridiculous. We're playing in a 5,000 seat arena. Get us out of there."
So why did that vote that went down cause that? Like, that's the part that I'm just so confused by, is that they just got turned down again by the people
I
in
know.
Phoenix going, we don't
I know.
want this.
I know.
And they're not just going, okay, this is our final year in
Well,
Phoenix.
because
we're relocating.
I'm guessing it'll happen in the off season. I'm guessing they don't want to announce it during a
Like the
season
A's?
and then tank the I don't know how
Well,
much
the
you could-
5,000
to
we're going to
the
take the 5,000
yeah, that's what they're worried about.
They're not even
worried about-
selling out.
They're worried about 100 people showing up for a 5,000 seat arena.
Yeah,
do wanna
it's
go to
not
the
even
Yikes.
selling out.
It's embarrassing.
So, Barroway, hedge fund guy, former majority owner. I think he still owns a small portion of the Coyotes. I have buddies that live in Phoenix, are from here, who've been in his owner's box with them, and the stuff that they've seen in there, they're like, I can't believe this guy's an NHL owner. You should see what's going on right now. I'm like, do tell. And they would tell me, I'm like, oh my God. That'll be in the 30. I will not say what happened. I will tell it off the record. If you see me at a local establishment, I'll tell you. And I'm just like, geez,
Sorry, I had to say that.
like, that is brutal. And this Morello guy that took over, apparently some of his methods are pretty messed up too.
Well, I've read some of the athletics articles.
Yeah.
That Katie Strang has done a really good
Yes.
job document, and she's gotten some pushback. I think it was Katie Strang. That,
Katie Strang is like the
she
investigative
did a
reporter.
really
yeah.
good job on
like
this.
the Rick Weston of the States.
And then the icing on top, and you kind of hit on it already, Dino, but that arena that they're in right now, players are openly mocking it. They had Zegras on with Ali Lozoff on the Ducks broadcast a couple of weeks ago, and she was asking about the atmosphere, and he's like, yeah, and like started laughing about it, and then he had to like skate away because you can't say, you're not supposed to say bad stuff about it, but apparently as much as they try to make it NHL caliber, it's a WHL arena
Well,
in
Marty
the
Walsh,
NHL, and it's a joke.
NHLPA Prez just came out this week and said it's about time that the Coyote players get an NHL facility.
Yeah.
Like, just throwing that out there. So, like, it's...
They have one down the down the
has to be.
303.
This has to be the last year. Like I
I
cannot.
know, but they're trying to work on a deal. Is it Tempe now?
Sure,
Tempe.
I don't know. Is
that's
it Tempe?
fine. But
Yeah.
listen, the NHL.
No, Tempe fell through.
the NHL
Well, then what's the
has,
new one that they're trying? I thought it was Mesa that fell through. Or are they trying Mesa?
Oh, they're in Tempe now. Yeah, Mesa fell through.
the NHL will have something ready.
But by all
As a-
accounts,
Salt
they're
Lake
trying to
City
buy
is
land
ready
again
right
somewhere
now.
else to
Yeah.
try to build a stadium.
Oh, I
and
know
that's
they're
like,
trying.
that'd be cool.
But at some
I-
point, the NHL is going to step in and say, okay, this is your last chance.
Yeah.
And they probably already
Right.
have a contingency plan, and they just don't want to announce
I
it. during
want
the
to
It's-
believe
it's
you,
Salt
but
Lake.
I want to
They're
believe you.
So you
guys-
think
they're
they're
ready.
going to Salt Lake right now? It's
The
going to
owner
be
of the
a
Jazz.
relocation.
Ryan Smith is his
think
name,
so.
I believe.
Yep.
He is ready.
Ryan Smith.
He is in bed with the NHL. He is ready
to relocate.
to bring in a
Okay.
team.
But I will believe it when I see it with the NHL
Yeah.
because
The Salt Lake
I don't know how
City
many times at
Jets.
1260 we talked about the Coyotes' last chance, and this is it. And we're still here talking about them being there, and I'll believe it when I see Gary Bettman finally sit there at a press conference somewhere saying, welcome the Salt Lake Coyotes, or
Yeah.
whatever it is. Like, that's when I'll officially believe it, because logic would dictate they should have moved a long time ago.
How low can they go? Pardon me. How low can they go? Because they've stooped. I think this
Yeah.
is rock bottom. You're playing in a
Pretty rock bottom.
5,000 seat facility. Yes, it's at ASU. That's cool. College atmosphere.
Yeah,
but
the
it's
college
already
game
wearing
would be
off.
cool. The
Yeah.
Coyotes game
Thank
would
you,
not.
Dino. Yes.
I'd love to go see a hockey
Yeah.
game there,
Yeah.
but I don't need 41 games there.
Yeah.
It's incredibly
not good.
embarrassing for a league that wants to compete, that's been passed by the MLS, in my opinion.
Not yet.
No,
and
well,
by the way, that
it's
was
gonna
movers.
happen.
Yes,
It's
that was movers
happening.
and shakers. Brought to you by the Marco and Mike Realty One Group Insider, MarcoandMike.com for more info. This is the EST Hangout presented by Mott's Clamato Caesar, available in both original variety 12 packs, great pack size for entertaining and hanging out with friends like we're doing. Trev, you're being the
Nice. Yeah,
little
yeah, yeah.
display
We got
there
some
for
nice
us. Your
Clamato
coffee there.
here.
Tom
Thank you,
Gazzola, Matt
Where's
Iwanyk,
mine?
Dean Millard, and YouTube Trev with us here. Soccer has already passed hockey in terms of popularity in the States. Those soccer fans, though, aren't MLS fans. They're
Sure,
global
yeah, yeah.
soccer fans. There's either the Mexican League,
But
or
MLS
English.
is on the way.
But,
It's
and I
coming.
think that the reckoning that's coming for the National Hockey League and hockey is the 2026 World Cup. It's in North America, but more specifically, it's in the U.S. And there's going to be a bump of the soccer popularity that's going to grow from that. Messi's now in MLS. And by this decade, I do believe that we will see potentially MLS be bigger than the NHL if the NHL doesn't figure this out. Because, look, franchises in MLS are going for almost the same price as an NHL franchise right now. I think their last one in San Diego was $500 million. And we're talking about the last NHL one being $650 million. They don't get the TV numbers yet. But at what point is having a World Cup that you always get those little bumps?
Sure.
Is that
If the
2026?
U.S. does really well, especially, right?
Absolutely. If they get that bump of having the World Cup there and that whole summer of everyone's talking about soccer, and then all of a sudden, hey, here's our league, MLS. That's the fear I would have if I was the NHL and Gary Bettman.
It's so funny. For so long, we thought, okay, there's the NFL, there's the big four, right? The NFL,
Yes.
Major League Baseball, the NBA. And then a lot of people put hockey in there. And then for a long time, people are like, is golf going to catch hockey in the big four? And I don't really know where golf's popularity
there.
is anymore. It's not nearly as
Golf's
close.
like in pockets, right?
Yeah, it
It
is.
comes and goes.
And then so now it's like, okay, what's the MLS? And it always seems like everybody wants to get into that big four, right? So it's always somebody, is
Well,
this going to
it's
catch
called
hockey?
the Big
Is
Five
this
now in
going
the
to catch?
States. They start. There's a lot of people in the media.
What is the
referencing
fifth?
MLS.
Yeah, so that's
There's
what I'm
a
saying. There's
lot of
somebody that's
conversations.
always
It's not Big Four anymore. It's the
trying
Big
to
Five.
catch.
Yeah.
And is
NASCAR
hockey
kinda
even?
got in there.
Yeah, so it's always somebody. So it's
You're
like
right.
there's a big three for sure. And then hockey's like, hey, remember us? And
Hello.
then everybody else is catching up. So at some point, hockey's not going to be in the big four if stuff like this continues to happen because it turns them into a laughing stock.
Good point.
Surveyor Brett saying, move the Coyotes to Silent Ice East.
Yeah.
You know what?
Their new arena is gorgeous.
There's big money there, man, and those are hockey. You know those guys, the Lekelts and the whole crew there, Geertsen and Spitzy. Like that's legit. and they're huge.
Well, not
hockey
the Coyotes
people.
going to
No.
this.
Yeah,
that would be-
sorry.
That's not legit.
That's a legit company that has
Yes.
big money
No,
and
100%.
loves hockey.
Yeah, well,
That's what
I want to clarify that part.
Sorry, I want to.
The Coyotes aren't moving to Nisku.
No.
we
I'm
did
just talking about
build
like.
a beautiful arena that is
Yeah.
probably nicer.
Sean
than
Bell
the-
says that it's the second nicest facility in Alberta
Yeah,
after Rogers.
it's the nicest new arena that doesn't have a pro team in Canada. I call it the Jewel of the West. We're gonna have a Saints game, Spruce Grove Saints versus Sherwood Park there on November 28th.
Excellent.
Regular
so
season?
people can come check it out.
way.
Yeah,
Super
We've
sweet.
got a beautiful lower bowl in the Hatch Co Arena. There's some luxury suites. There's a restaurant up top that has some sky suites that you can
really?
sit out on. There's another arena. Sean Bell's team, HC Edmonton, has their own pro style dressing room.
I've heard.
Their own. That's their home arena.
Bells.
Yeah.
There's also another pro style dressing room in there that may or may not be for staff members that have
I've
their
heard.
We've talked about it on here. Yeah, no, we've had some people on. The
So, and
staff, you guys got this
it's
nice,
great.
your own
Like,
stalls or
we
something?
We want to get, like, Hello Hockey's got to be doing a show.
We'll go out there.
Belzy was
Actually-
on Game Changers. You guys should be getting
Yeah.
out there.
We'll get out
I
there.
have a text from Brandon asking about that stuff.
So
I just
it's
have to
kinda-
get back to him
it's
after
just-
the show
it's
about you
such
guys
a-
doing the
it's
show
such
there.
a great,
So.
and our broadcast facility in there. We're gonna have our own studio for our show, but we have our own giant booth and everything is set up. So yeah, we have a Saints game on the 28th. It's going to be so fun to check it out. Our winter championship is December 13th to the 17th. That's going to be a massive event where all of these teams from the JPHL will be competing, and it is Dan and Lindsay LeKelt and the group. They've went to a lot of arenas. They've seen a lot of arenas. They own the Seattle Thunderbirds, the Spruce Grove Saints, and the different leagues. So they've been out to these arenas. The finishing touches and the fine details are just going to blow people away. Just driving up to the arena, if you ever get a chance to drive up at night and how
the
it
lights
looks,
on the
lighting,
outside,
and
yeah, I've
so
seen those.
It's just there's nothing has been spared, and everything is first class, and like that Saints game is going to be awesome with the lower bowl filled up and everything, and then our winter championship. And I don't know what the future is. I'm pretty sure it's not the Coyotes, but I don't know what the future is about a professional team or some sort of team, because it is perfect.
Yeah.
Whether it's a junior team or like this women's professional league is starting to grow as
Yeah,
well.
that's true.
There's a need for these types of arenas, and the kids that get to play in it they walk in there and they're just wowed by how cool it is. So we're really excited about that. And you joke about the Coyotes. I will say I would not put anything past the Silent Ice group when it comes to owning anything.
Think
I
big,
would
right?
never
Yeah.
say we can't do that. I don't think that's allowed in our office. So I don't know. I don't know if the NHL is at all on their radar, because their radar is so big. So I wouldn't put anything past that group.
You just got to
and
get
what we're
through
doing.
Daryl Cateston at that point. Because
Yeah.
there'd be the regional deal with the Oilers, and
Yeah,
that's the only it's
Like I don't, obviously Edmonton's not big enough to support two teams,
No.
but I wouldn't put them past owning a professional
No.
team at some
No,
point
no.
down the road somewhere. And like I said, that arena is kind of maybe just the tip of the iceberg about what we might see in other places, because the JPHL, we have teams in the Calgary area and the Vancouver area and the Edmonton
heading
area,
out to
as well as
Vancouver
all
quite a bit.
over. So
Yep.
I was just out in Vancouver. So it's beautiful. I love this company, and I love the big picture, and that's what you need if you are going to get into that game of professional sports, is big thinkers.
yeah. Yes.
It's funny, like we spent the first hour of this show or so talking about the shrinking, bleak nature of Canadian media landscape.
Yeah.
You need people that think bigger and
Yeah.
think differently and think
Outside the
about
box.
how could we do things better. And there's going to be voids in certain spots.
That conversation
we will
happens
fill those
all the time
voids,
with
and
us,
that's the thing that
It's
you need
production
those
companies,
people.
and we have very big plans of what we want to do. We'll get there eventually, but you do need that. We talked about kids coming out of school. If they're not going to go to a station, they've got to go somewhere to learn how to shoot, edit,
Yeah.
write,
Make mistakes.
yeah, exactly. It's companies like us, and we want to be able to train the next level of broadcasters, whether it's kids that are coming out of college that need more experience, or hey, maybe it's kids coming out of high school that don't want to go to college, that want to learn right on the job, right?
Yeah.
Like there's the sky's the limit for production companies to fill that void, but you do need big thinkers.
Yep.
Deep pockets certainly helps,
Yep.
but big picture people are going to succeed right now in filling those voids?
That's a good point.
I feel like we should talk a little Oilers right now.
Let's go for it.
Well, I'll bring
Man,
Trev.
that game last night, that first period, I was like, how is this team responding like this? The way they turned over the puck. I couldn't believe. I was shocked they won that game.
YouTube Trev is very upset.
Yeah,
right
what
now.
did you make of this
First
Oiler
period.
game last night? Because
I don't know. It was. I was getting ready for the post game show to just be like just dreadful, and I was not looking forward to it at all. And I'm getting ready. I'm literally writing. The Oilers lose and this, and then all of a sudden I hear them score. I'm like, okay, never mind. Something happened, and then I come out here. Surely enough, Vander Kane ties it up. Like, that's just crazy. But honestly, I really don't think they had any business winning that game, like, at all. Like, they kind of lucked out there, and I said you got to be good to be lucky and lucky to be good, but it's just it was not the greatest response, not a great effort in the first 40. It was kind of in a lull, and McDavid, he was kind of wheeling, but for the most part, I think Seattle should have won that game. They should have. Like,
That first period was awful.
It was
he had
it
a
was-
bad 56 minutes.
bad.
Like the
that's
body
all it was.
language,
Oh my god,
the turnovers, the one goal. Seattle's coming across. Every Oiler is pointing at somebody,
Yeah.
and then they all got beat.
Yeah.
Like McLeod is pointing over here, and he got beat by the goal scorer. Like, I'm like, it's less pointing and more. It just turnovers in the first two goals, and then the third goal was just like a chaos. And I'm like, how does this team just, because they're not that bad defensively.
They're not.
They've proven at times. Sean Bell said it with me, is that they just showed at times they can do it. So it tells you that it was more of a internal thing up here than with your hands. And they went right back to it last night. And honestly, winning that game could almost make them think, oh, well, we could do this. I hope it doesn't, because they should realize how badly they were outplayed and how they had no business winning that game.
what's
'Cause sometimes as a coach, you get scared when you win games like that because of the mindset.
You know what's funny, Dino, is they get crossed up by simple plays when offense is attacking them. Like, a simple cross at the blue line will discombobulate these guys. And you're like, hey, Pee Wee players do that.
No kidding.
You know what you do. Stay in your lane. You got that guy now. I've got this guy now. It's all good.
But all that pointing, it was like, what is going on here?
Yeah.
They seem really.
They're capable of much better.
They seem confused last night.
See, and I'll go this. I feel like this could potentially be, there's the one mindset where it's like, well, fine, we could always just do this type thing. Or is this that switch that finally clicked with this team and go, that's how we know we could play hockey. Those 4 minutes are what we can do for 60 minutes.
Yeah, but why didn't they say that about the last game?
But sometimes you just need that little spark that gets you going.
Like the coach getting fired?
Well,
or like,
but internal, like, is this that moment for them that they go, we've got this? And that's why I'll be intrigued by this Tampa game, because if they come out flying, I feel like maybe that's going to be the point we look back on and be like, there's the turning point of this season.
Last night's game,
that comeback.
Jay Woodcroft would be, if I was Jay Woodcroft, I'd be watching that game saying, that's exactly the bull crap I was dealing with for this time. So it's not me. They're doing this with Chris Knobloch in his second game. So these players are like, and listen, the old adage, you can't fire the players, but how many more times are these guys going to be let off the hook? I mean, it's crazy that they can revert back to this one game after and then pull it out of their butt like that. It's like, honestly, the players should be like, holy man, we were terrible here, and we need to. We owe it to Woodcroft, first of all, and Chris Knobloch to turn this around. Because last time I was here, I think we talked about expectations. This fan base with this roster should still have those expectations of getting to there. It's going to be a lot harder to get into the playoffs, and then you see it. But after last night, I don't know what to think anymore.
Well, but then, like they should sit there and look. We played a terrible game. We got lucky. Yeah. And is that, like I said, going to be the moment for them? Is the switch where it's like,
are they arrogant enough to think we can do it all the time?
Exactly.
Is there enough? Yeah, that's what I think. So too.
Absolutely are.
I agree, man.
Proven that to
I agree. Can they look themselves in the mirror and say, "We were horse crap. We need to be better," or do they look and say, "We did it"?
I'm going to give him benefit of the doubt.
It's like that kid that's on the computer, that meme where he looks at the thanks.
Yeah.
It's that guy. They're that guy right now.
Yeah, they are.
I'm going to give him benefit of the doubt because of the coaching change this week and go, I think this could be that moment where they turn it around, where they figure it out and go, we got lucky.
When it's 4-0
we know we could play better.
The first 12 minutes in.
Then that's the season. Like they're not going to figure it out. If this is the moment they can't ultimately turn, where you have a week where you had the coaching change, you play an okay hockey game against the Islanders. You then come back and revert back to this.
Yeah.
But you get the comeback win.
It's the ego. Can you take your ego off and accept it? And you know what? For the most part, there's still some young players in that dressing room.
Yeah.
Like they're getting to that point where they're no longer young, and you should be realizing that, okay, I'm taking my ego and my offensive expectations and I'm putting them over here. Team first, win games. Will that happen? That's the biggest question for me with this team. Not about the coaching, not about the goaltending and the defense, because if you don't get that other stuff first, it doesn't matter about any of the other stuff.
Yeah. It's
What Cass said, I think it was in the pregame, and it's so true. They when they're in the defensive end, like it's way too much thinking. Like they all they're doing is just like it's not like they never react, like they never use their instinct. You know, it's just like, oh, what do I do? Like, oh, I should probably go here. They don't just go there. You know, they're always like one step behind. And that was on full display last night. Like they were just with the pointing. It's like, what's this doing? This isn't doing nothing. Like, put the finger down and just go skate to him.
There's been so much pointing in the D zone this year.
Like,
it's unbelievable.
It's like,
I wonder
what
if
is
there's
that
pointing
doing?
in the dressing room.
Are you saying, like, I'm going there? Or are you telling him to go there?
Like, are they starting to point fingers at each other? That would be the thing that you would worry about. And I'm not anywhere close to the team. You guys are obviously closer, so I don't know. But that's the thing you start worrying about is when, closed door meetings.
Okay.
Yeah.
It seems okay right now.
Right now, right?
But, I mean, if the losses, this type of play continues, then the cracks will start to appear.
I think so. If like you said, if they come out flat again, I think you're going to maybe start hearing. I hope we don't see it, but fractures in that room of people being pissed off. And that's no different than what might be happening in Calgary too, right? Where Ottawa, when they're struggling, it's no matter the team. It happened in Vegas with the Raiders, and they fired their coach right after, right? So it happens with every team. It's like the stages of grief that you go through. It's the same thing with a hockey team.
Absolutely.
It's like, do this, closed door meeting, fire the coach. Now get pissed off at each other. Okay, go listen
Fight
to Gloria.
each other in practice.
Yeah, whatever. It's like a checklist that you go through.
Yep.
I do look at this as this is the season-defining road trip for them. This isn't going to be easy, but they can't lose 3 of the 4. Otherwise, they're not turning around. It's Tampa, it's Florida, it's Carolina, it's Washington. It's not easy.
Oh man!
But it's one of those. If they go 1-3 on this trip, they're not turning around. They're never going to turn around.
If
at
they
this
go
point.
1-3, 1-2-1, maybe. Because then you get a bad bonus point, right?
You need at least a 2-1-1 stretch. Here.
Yeah, I think even 5 points. Some people be like, that's not good enough. But I'll accept 5 points. I think, which is 2 wins and an OT loss.
I don't think they're better than 2-2 on this road trip.
And so then when do you turn the season around? Because
I don't know.
The one benefit that they had that they've blown.
Gloria. Get Gloria rolling on the...
maybe Olivier Rodrigue needs to come up.
Maybe.
It's like they at least had Binnington, and like he was playing well in the American Hockey League. You're going to need that. Now, Skinner has been playing well. I shouldn't take anything.
You guys had Bouwmeester on, right?
Yep.
And he talked about this whole... how that turned around. Do you see any of that in this Oiler team? Like that Blues team was blue collar, could go to work. I see a different vibe around this Oiler team than I ever did looking at that Blues team. I don't see this Oiler team getting dirty and mucky, and I see almost this, and I hate saying this, I see this Oiler team, if continued struggles, just folding up the tent. I don't see them fighting and digging in like the St. Louis Blues did last place.
So like the Elks were 0-9 this year, but you never thought they didn't care. They turned their season around. Yeah, I don't think the Oilers have that.
I'm not sure if they have that intestinal fight.
Yeah. If this keeps going this way through the next few weeks, I don't think we're talking about this unbelievable comeback in January and February with this organization.
No, maybe a run, but fall short. I don't know. I still think if they can get into the playoffs, they're a dangerous team.
Yeah,
like
Colin Leon.
Can you get in there?
Yeah.
Right. And that's not even talking about the actual physical struggles that they're having with goaltending and blue lining and not back checking, not picking up guys. This is all the mental game right now. Like we know they have the skill.
Yeah.
We know they have the talent. They're struggling, obviously, in certain areas, but this is not a physical thing. This is they're not
They're in
thinking
their heads.
the game,
They're in their heads,
and they're
for
not
sure.
playing properly. So the mental game is leading to mistakes on the ice, and this is to me not a roster problem. This is a mental problem.
Totally.
Yeah.
What do they have to do on the strip in your eyes?
Yeah, like I think
What is your expectations?
for sure they have to. They've always played Tampa strong. They have like I remember
Recently they have, yeah.
Recently, like whether they're in Tampa, like
Good time to get Tampa.
Yeah,
right?
no, for sure. So Florida as well. Like I can remember pretty good that they show up against Florida and Tampa. Carolina though, like no, like Carolina's always seemed to trouble the Oilers quite a bit. And same with Washington as well. So
could they do 2-2? Is that okay, or is that not good enough?
No, like
That's 4 points.
That's 4 points is okay, but
They
ideally,
play well
if
against
they
Florida in Florida.
yeah, they do.
Yeah.
They
The
do.
Florida teams they do well against.
Yeah, they
Carolina,
do.
Washington, they do struggle a little bit on the road.
Washington's been struggling as of late. So if they could get 3, like that's ideal. I think they need 3 to go 3-1 for sure.
Coach Mike Texan, 780-218-9999, Paris Jewelers inbox. The Oilers are the Spider-Man pointing meme in the defensive zone.
That is so good.
Yeah.
That is the perfect. That is such a great text, man, because that is really it. That coming over the blue line, everybody was pointing at everybody else,
don't know what they're
and
doing.
then it was like, see, I was like, okay, we'll just go to the
I'll
net.
go score,
They
I
make it
guess.
so easy.
Yeah.
Oh man, that sums it up right there. I don't think we could have summed it up any more perfect than that.
Yeah.
Big Uke there.
Oh, you want me to read Big Ukes?
Sure, go for it.
How much more time do you give the Yotes this season and next before they are moved? That was a little bit earlier. Then Big Uke follows up with, they got the luck last night that they weren't getting to start the year.
Okay.
If that was Game 6, the Vinny puck probably goes into the Oilers' net.
Yes.
So yeah, they got the luck, but they only played 4 minutes of hockey as you can.
Yeah.
Now the overtime they were flying because they had momentum. Like McDavid's best hockey was that overtime.
Oh, for sure.
When he was,
They should always be the best.
That's
When
right.
when you're giving Connor and Leon 3-on-3 and that much ice, they should be the best team.
But where was that? I didn't see that jump as much. You got to make sometimes you got to make your own jump. You got to get your own momentum going and things like that.
That's the thing. Like this whole time when they were losing to start this season, people going, they're just unlucky. You go
Yeah,
earn
the
your own
PDO
luck.
was crazy,
You go
yeah.
earn it sometimes. You go and get those bounces by going to the net or doing things. It's just you can't just sit there like, they're unlucky. No, teams sometimes the adage, good to be lucky, lucky to be good. I never bought into they just were an unlucky team. Now look.
Yeah, bounces happen from time to time.
Yeah, absolutely. But your finish needs to be better sometimes. Like just straight up, that's on you as players. And that's not just you're unlucky. Like
bad teams lose games for a reason.
Yeah.
They don't lose.
Not that many. At
You
least
don't lose that many games with that
Just 'cause of luck.
bounces. Exactly.
How many times, I've said this a bunch of times throughout the season, but how often have we seen the Oilers pass up a glorious shooting opportunity? That's creating your own luck. You get the puck on net, go for the rebound. Hard
bounce.
hard
Weird
hockey.
bounce.
That's
how
where you
did-
could-
Off the other guy's leg.
Yeah.
the
How did the
defenseman.
Kraken score yesterday?
Yeah,
the
exactly.
shot
Went
on
off the
net,
leg.
Skinner,
Off his
he
leg.
gets it all, hits the leg, goes in the net.
How did the
Boom.
Oilers score on Saturday? All 4 goals when they beat the Kraken handily in what was probably their best 60-minute performance.
Yeah.
Better
By
than that
doing
now,
Pucks on
yeah.
net. Pucks on net.
I think they were better in the Kraken game
And
than they were in the
circumstances too, right?
Sure.
Circumstances. Looking at that game
Yeah.
when they needed that effort, but.
Text comes in from TB, says, with all the Vegas talk earlier, the Oilers are like a hot deck in blackjack. Woodcroft sat at the table and took bad beat after bad beat until the deck was hot and Knobloch was called over. Oil shouldn't have won last night, but when you're first in expected goals all season, eventually they'll win one. They probably shouldn't have. That's a fair point, TB.
Yeah, goals expected is one thing. It's the goals against that is it's their play in their own end that is atrocious. We all know this team should never have problem scoring, and that will equal itself out at some point. Remember, Connor missed some time as well. So this team, I am not at all worried about this team scoring goals because that will balance itself out.
Yeah.
It's going to. They're going to get there. but it won't matter if they can't figure anything out in their own end. And, you know, again, this is a mental thing, but it goes back to the offseason where they clearly needed, in my opinion, and a lot of other people's opinion, help on the blue line. You shouldn't have went into the season expecting to get what you were going to get out of Bouchard and Broberg, and they're paying for it now. I'm not going to sit there and say they should have saw Jack Campbell imploding because, you know, they signed him to a contract. Whether you agree with that contract or not, I don't think anybody saw this guy imploding like this.
Well,
This is over and above what we saw. But I think we all saw the holes that they potentially had on the blue line, and they went and got a forward that McDavid used to play with, and which to me just seemed like it was addressing the wrong issue.
Well, we all expected Evan Bouchard to continue to play the way he did in the stretch and in the playoffs, because the year before he struggled, and then down the stretch with Duncan Keith, he picked it up, and we thought, oh, okay, he's coming along. That's how you develop. And then he regressed again at the start of last year, and then picked it up in the spring.
Because he's a young defenseman.
Yeah, and now we're watching him regress again.
Yeah.
And
nobody should be surprised. I mean, this is what happens to young defensemen.
how many times can he do that over and repeat himself?
That's fine. He's young. He's how many years?
He's younger than
24.
24.
He's 24 years old.
He's just hitting 200
so that's fine.
games.
Looks like he's 30.
And he's been and so I don't have a problem with the regression, Tom. I have the problem with them expecting it not to happen again.
I understand, and they backed themselves into that
Yes,
corner.
that's
100%.
right. So
that's on management.
It's
We
on
recognize
this team
that.
to develop this guy properly because
Yeah.
we've seen him at times, and it's on this team to recognize that this might happen in his whole career. Evan Bouchard might be a amazing offensive defenseman that has holes in his game and has lapses in his game, whereas I think Philip Broberg is not going to have that offensive ceiling, but is going to be more all around when he gets there. Expecting two defensemen under 24 to play in your top four like that, as I think they were, is too much.
Yeah. Well, Broberg, I mean, that experiment might be toast. We'll see what happens with his next shot when he gets
again,
back
he's
in.
so young still.
I know.
I mean,
and
we got to be careful about defensemen, especially.
But if you're the others, you need to make a move this year.
Sure, maybe.
Is Broberg
but
not
you
that guy where you go?
You should have made a move
something?
before
He's part of
that.
it.
You should have made a move before that because the expectations of those two defensemen not having regressions in their game was a massive oversight, in my opinion.
For sure.
Is Stuart Skinner? Or go ahead.
Yeah, they need that, whether it's Darnay or Broberg, that spot right now is just it's not bad. If they, I think for sure Broberg should be the piece if they were to trade, and you'd get way more as for Vinny. But that's just the whole, like last night just watching Vinny, I'm sorry, like he almost, that was like they showed, I don't know if you guys seen it, but Zach Hyman's in the penalty box and he was like oh my gosh.
How about the off-ice official?
Yeah, he was like, he looked at him and he's like, oh my gosh. And yeah, so it's like, that was bad. But like, he's in a net front battle with Jaden Schwartz, and Schwartz knocked him on his butt. Like, that's like, he's the biggest Oiler. And like, that's one thing he does have is his size. And I'm sorry, but at least with Nima Leinen, he was laying the body. Like Vinny Desharnais, like, when the play stops when it comes to him, it's just he doesn't do anything. Like really, like he'll just, as soon as it's on his stick, he's like, get it off. I'm like, I don't want it. And then when it comes back, he's the one pointing and almost scoring. So it's not, that's a huge hole they really need to address.
I don't think it's a rosier picture with Marcus Niemelainen.
Yeah. What's that?
I don't think it's rosier.
No, it's not.
It's just
like,
guys are in over their
like,
head.
Yeah.
They're in
like, it's
spots
like
they shouldn't
those
be.
two
How many
are
times
so
do we see that over the years
interchangeable.
where the Oilers try to put a round peg in a square hole? Right? Yeah. You just can't force a guy to be better than he is.
You know what the answer is, Dino?
What's that?
Decade of Darkness taught us this. Go sign an obscure Finn and expect the world from him.
Yeah. You know, there's one sitting out there.
Always is.
Jessica Puljujärvi.
No, shut up.
You teed that one up for me. I'm sorry, you teed that up for me.
I said obscure Finn, not a Finn that everybody knows about and just
but
is
maybe
a
this
lightning
is the
rod.
time. Well, maybe play him on defense.
Stop
maybe
it.
we've never
Who
seen him on
was,
defense.
like there
maybe
was
that's
like
what we need to see.
a list of Finns, like and they were big dudes, right? Hardakainen came in.
Yes,
Joensuu.
Leonard
Petrell.
You nailed these all.
Puckarina.
You
The
nailed all
Saviors.
those. Yeah.
Who's the shootout king?
Linus Omar.
Linus Omar.
Yeah.
You know, he's Swedish, but I think
Oh,
he grew
he's-
up on the border of Finland.
I think one parent is Swedish
Yeah,
and
and
one's
one's
Finnish,
Finnish.
maybe
Yeah,
or something.
yeah.
But yeah, and then you go back to then they got into some of the Swedes too. But that
Remember Tony Salmelainen?
yes.
Get an obscure Finn.
He was a
and
really good
expect-
road runner. He was a good
great-
road runner.
Yeah.
Eric's on board with me. Play him on defense. Bring in Jesse Puljujärvi and play him on defense. We haven't seen it.
Maybe.
We haven't seen it. Let's give it
Well,
a try.
maybe an obscure Finn. Maybe they should bring Curry into the coaching staff. That would be a bit obscure as Paul Coffey came in. I mean,
but
we
I
haven't
was-
even talked about that yet.
Well, I just with Puljujärvi too here, like they said, he was good at getting the puck off people's sticks.
Yeah.
He does. You don't have to worry about scoring. I'm telling you, there's your solution for the Edmonton Oilers. It just makes, as I keep talking about it, the more it makes sense to me. And if Eric's on board, I'm on board.
This is ruining my image of Paul Coffey. You know,
Is it actually?
just because I didn't want to see him as a coach. This is who I think Paul Coffey is. He's the Fonz. Paul Coffey was the Fonz of that 80s group. He was laid back.
Yeah.
He was cool. He was collected. I bet you could start the jukebox by shooting a puck at it like the Fonzie. He was the coolest guy. Like everybody else, like Messier, he's tough, and Gretzky was the best. Curry, you know, Tikkanen, you couldn't understand him, whatever, right? Coffey was always the coolest guy.
He still is a cool
And he
guy.
is cool, but now he's in his suit. I want to see him in his Fonzie on the jump on the shark and things like that.
Yeah.
He was the Fonz to me. You don't even know what Happy Days is. This
He
guy.
doesn't know
He
any
has
of that.
no idea about
He's
Happy Days.
clueless.
But I want to see. That's
that.
my image of Coffey. He was always so good, but he was always so laid back.
Yeah.
Now I see him in a suit on a bench, and I'm like, the Fonz. It's like Barry now. Now I see Henry Winkler as Barry instead of the Fonz.
Yeah.
And Paul Coffey has come full circle, but it's interesting.
We're almost done for the hangout
Wow.
today. 2 hours almost up here.
That
Do you
is
know,
wild.
I know. What do you got? More Saints and
Yeah, we have actually,
more Vengeance stuff coming up.
We have a Challenge Cup this weekend out at the new arena. It's
Excellent.
2015s and 2016s age groups. So it's the HSL, the HPL, which is the High Performance League in BC, the Hockey Super League in Alberta. And Chris Versteeg has brought his Clever Super League from Ontario.
Right.
And there's the Clever Super League Quebec that'll be competing. So 4 different provinces, the 2015 age, 2016. Next weekend, we have another showcase there for the JPHL. We'll also be in BC. And as I mentioned, the Saints game on November 28th at the Silent Ice Center. It's going to be awesome. So it won't be at Grant Fuhr Arena where they usually are. We'll be there Friday and Saturday for Brooks is in town Saturday, so that'll be fun. And then the Winter Championship, December 13th to 17th. The final day of that, we're going to have a full show. But I encourage people to come and check out that arena. If you want to check it out this Sunday, we have live action or the Saints game on the 28th. And For Vengeance Media is the production company. So silenticetv.com is where you can watch it all.
Thanks
Damn.
for coming in again. It's great
Always a
having you.
pleasure to hang out with you guys on the Hangout.
YouTube Trev, you've got some work today, I guess. Do you?
Yeah,
What are you
yeah,
up
yeah,
to?
yeah. I got
Just
this.
cutting up some
You should have
clips?
been no.
What's- yeah,
Just
yeah,
cutting
I'm
up
putting
some
together-
clips,
putting
I
up
guess.
some-
You should have said no. You gave me the day off. I'm going for a spa downstairs.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh, nice.
Coming up next here on Edmonton Sports Talk in our YouTube channel, it is the Lock Shop. The Cool Bet Boys will be on the air for that. The Cool Bet Hotline of the day, Odell Beckham Jr. over 25.5 receiving yards in tonight's Thursday Night
Wow.
Football game. That's going to be very tough for my Baltimore Ravens. We'll see if we can pull out this victory tonight, but I'm a little worried about my team there, Tommy.
What time does a PJ pick you up to take you to
and
Baltimore
then-
for the game? Double zeros.
Well, I got where I'm at noon. I'm back on with
there you go.
2 guys and a goalie. Myself, Joaquin Gage, Matt Cassian. We'll go further into the Oiler game against the Kraken last night and look ahead to their road trip. And I don't know, they like talking about what's the show that you guys, Loki or whatever?
Low-key.
Yeah, we ain't talking about that today. I'll tell you that right
No
now.
low-key.
But yeah,
Low-key or
I don't know
low-key?
anything
Like
about
the
it.
Marvel.
Low-key. Yeah, Marvel.
Okay,
yeah, yeah.
okay.
So I don't know what else we'll talk about. Maybe I'll get them to explain to me what the show is or something. But that's coming up. 2 guys and a goalie. Myself, Matt Cassian, Joaquin Gage. That's at noon. Followed by the Lock Shop, which is coming up next on behalf of Tom Gazzola, YouTube Trev, D. Millard. I'm Matt Iwanyk. Thanks for tuning in to the Hangout. I'll chat with you coming up at noon. Enjoy the Lock Shop, which is up next.